West Denver. Sleep deprived and heavily caffeinated.
All right, let's do this then.
This is the Jeff and Bill Show.
I don't agree with that.
They don't always agree, but hey, at least they have coffee.
Coffee.
And each other.
I love you, man.
God help us.
I want to bless him. We need all the help we can get.
Now here's Jeff Hunt and Bill Thorpe. The Jeff and Bill Show on News Talk 710 KNUS.
It is 6 a.m. in the Mile High City on this Friday, May 9th, 2025. Bill, I'm going to give you my best Latin here.
Yes.
Habebos Papam. We have a pope.
Yes, we do. It's
right after the show, too.
I know. I was sitting there talking to Gino Geraci, and we were talking about when we'd think we'd see the smoke, and he may join us on Monday. And then all of a sudden, smoke. I'm like, wow. Yeah, there were all sorts of things that reminded me of my father yesterday, because he had a good way, because he grew up with a very Latin mass. And, of course, he grew up as a child through the Latin mass, so he had a wonderful way of mocking it. So when the Latin kicked in yesterday, yeah. And you, this is the first time I've seen you doing like espresso shots this morning. You seem a little tired, my friend. What's up? You seem just tired.
There was a track meet until 10 p.m. last night in Colorado Springs.
Who's in charge of scheduling? That's the Thursday track meet that goes until 10.
I know, and every kid's got school the next day.
Exactly. Yeah.
Dude, I had two different track meets, but one started at 2, the other one didn't end until 10. 8 hours. 8 hours. And what drives me crazy is how long it takes in between the heats.
Yes, it's okay. Yeah, track meets. It's as if they're running it for the first time.
Like, well, I'm like, are you like restarting a computer every time?
Yes,
like,
yes,
what?
Exactly. What's going on?
So you're gonna have 8 heats of 6th grade girls running the 200.
Yeah.
All right, that should take 5 minutes.
Yes.
Right, like, gun, bang, bang, girls run 200.
Yeah.
All right, they're done. Reset, bang, girls run. Instead, it was like 5, 7, 10 minutes in between every heat.
The people running next should be ready to go. Yeah. And as soon as the first people run away, they should be lining up. I mean, it should be that organized. It's ridiculous.
I was laughing the other day on X that, like, when your kids run track, or I guess swim meets are the same way.
Oh, swim meets are awful.
It's like your child will compete sometime between 8 a.m. and 8 p.m.
Yeah, I still remember, and I think I've told the story before on the air, where the track team in high school was trying to get me to come run for them because I was 1, soccer player, 2, I was fairly quick, and I was awful at baseball, but I could hit a slap grounder to shortstop and beat the throw to first. So I was fairly quick.
Yeah, you were fast.
They wanted me to run, and I said, I will run if you tell me when I have to show up and when I can run my race and I can leave. Now I got to be there the whole time. And I looked at the coach and said, that's stupid. And he goes, what do you mean? I said, I can go and play soccer and I can run miles. I can get 15 miles in 90 minutes, and that's with a 15-minute break at the half. Yeah. You want me to sit here for 4 hours so I can run 40 yards? That's dumb. I'm like, until you fix this sport, I'm not playing.
It's gotta be addressed.
It's ridiculous.
It's so it is an early morning, but we've got a lot to talk about.
Yes.
Tim Glimkowski, the executive director of the Amazing Parish, for years served as the CEO of the National Eucharist Congress, is going to be joining us here in a second to talk about Pope Leo XIV. A selection of a new pope that took place in Rome yesterday. Nathan Crankfield, the host of Seeking Excellence podcast, a younger Catholic, is going to join us to give us his perspective.
Before we get to I got to get the real offensive thing out early in the morning here while nobody else is really listening. Is it weird that the pope has to pick a new name? Kind of like they're announcing their drag queen persona. I'm just saying, it's kind of. I know I had to break that this morning.
I was worried, of course you could do that, and I had to warn all these Catholics that were coming on today. I'm like, I'm not even the Catholic.
No,
but yes, Bill's going to say something that's offensive.
Oh yes, absolutely. I'm absolutely going to say something that's offensive. I had to get that one. That one has been burning in my mind for at least that last half day. So I had to get that out of the way early because I don't want to when the people in charge are listening later. I don't want to be in trouble for that one.
Matt Lamb, Tim's already hanging up. No, Matt Lamb, associate editor of the College Fix. He's been on with us before. He covers a lot of things happening in Rome as a reporter. He'll be joining us in the 7 o'clock hour. And then Bill and I are taking a half day today.
Yes.
And Pete Boyle's going to be filling in for the second half of the show.
That's going to be awesome.
And then Stephen Tubbs is filling in for John Caldera tomorrow. So we've got a whole lot going on.
Stephen back in
today.
the house. It's great.
All right.
You know, he's gonna be planting some drugs in here in my studio, and I'm going to get arrested on Monday.
To get you arrested.
Yeah, that's going to happen. He's going to be like, I bet I know where there's some
Tubbs taking time away from his role with the DEA to come fill in with for John Caldera on Saturday.
There's some listeners going, yay!
Right. All right. Now it's time for your morning dose of news and comment with Blake Olson.
Blake Olson.
Blake Olson, news and comment.
Good morning, TGIF 43 and clear in Denver, expecting a high of 75 beautiful degrees today. The 7-10 5-day forecast coming up. Our top story, the Roman Catholic Church has an American Pope for the first time ever. Cardinal Robert Francis Prevost was dubbed Pope Leo XIV, as Jeff and Billy just mentioned. The pontiff has deep roots in the Chicago area, where he was born in 1955. He's also known in Peru, where he spent decades serving the poor and was known as the Latin Yankee. Pope Leo is celebrating his first Mass as leader of the Roman Catholic Church this morning. And let me see if you can hear the crowd yesterday as he emerged.
Beautiful spring weather will be moving in for this Mother's Day week.
Pretty dramatic moment. And hopefully a lot of Catholics hope that he will be far more conservative than Francis. We shall see. Federal officials say 18 people arrested during the DEA operation at the Springs nightclub last month have been removed from the U.S. The individuals were reportedly subject to final orders of removal. Over 80 people also arrested during the operation are still in ICE custody pending immigration proceedings. Authorities are investigating vandalism at the state capitol's parking lot on Wednesday. Damage was done to vehicles belonging to Representative Sean Camacho, Denver Democrat, and Republican Senate Minority Caucus Chair Byron Pelton. The Colorado State Patrol believes the cars were randomly chosen. Anyone with any information on this asked to contact the Colorado State Patrol dispatch. President Trump is reportedly thinking about raising income taxes on wealthy Americans.
Several media outlets say Trump is considering the tax hike to help pay for the larger tax breaks he enacted in 2017, which are set to expire next year. The new proposal would raise taxes on people who earn more than $2.5 million a year from 37% to just under 40%, which is where they were before the 2017 tax breaks. The budget package currently being debated in Congress would extend those tax breaks. I'm Tammy Trujillo.
And the Department of Defense is moving quickly to remove about 1,000 transgender service members from the U.S. military. On Thursday, trans service members were given 30 days to leave or be forced out. The order follows a Supreme Court ruling that enabled the Trump administration to follow through on a transgender military ban. The U.S. and U.K. trade agreement is the first trade deal to be reached with the U.S. since DJT announced his global tariff plan. And 47 says it's a good time to invest.
You better go out and buy stock now. Let me tell you, this country will be like a rocket ship that goes straight up. This is going to be numbers that nobody's ever seen before. That's a very important element of all of this. You know, if we get that. If you don't, and the Democrats are fighting it only because they want to fight. They have Trump derangement syndrome. You know, if it was somebody else, they wouldn't fight. If you had a normal person, if you had some stiff sitting behind you, they'd be fine.
Anytime you use the word stiff, that's a good thing. 3 people are in custody after a vehicle crashed into a building at Centennial Airport. Douglas County deputies began chasing this suspect on Wednesday night after an automatic license plate reader identified the vehicle as stolen. The driver refused to pull over, leading deputies on a pursuit that went from I-25 near Castle Pines to an area near the airport. They crashed into a building after failing to make it around a turn. A Denver resident was arrested for motor vehicle theft, eluding, and reckless driving. Another suspect was arrested on an outstanding warrant, while the third suspect was charged with possession of drug paraphernalia. News brought to you by Lair Fireplace and Patio, Denver's premier source for everything fireplace, patio, and grills. Locally owned and operated since 1954. Online at lairfireplacepatio.com. Nuggets and the Thunder tonight in Game 3 in Lodo. They'll try to take a 2-1 lead on the Thunder. 40 in Castle Pines, 41 in Lakewood, 43 in Denver. Jeff and Billy continue.
And you want me to sit in my seat and stand idly by and allow this craziness to happen?
Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Beautiful spring weather will be moving in for this Mother's Day weekend. Get out and enjoy some beautiful front range weather. Temperatures will be in the low to mid 70s today, mid to upper 40s tonight, mid to upper 70s Saturday. For today and Saturday, only a small chance of mainly an isolated thunderstorm over the mountains. Reaching into the low 80s Mother's Day Sunday, a better chance Sunday for some afternoon thunder, staying quite warm into Monday and Tuesday. Weather sponsored by Colorado's Best Roofing, reminding you to protect your home from the harsh Colorado weather and schedule your free no-obligation roof inspection today at roofingcolorado.com. That's roofingcolorado.com. Meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Habemos Papam. It was a wild day yesterday, a historic day. I loved it. I was watching everything, watching the emotion, and and then called a lot of my Catholic friends to get their responses. And I want to talk about that this hour and next. What does this mean for the future of the Catholic Church? Look, 50% of Christians globally are Roman Catholic. This affects Christianity in a big way. And the phrase, Habemos Papam, we have a Pope, took place yesterday. You saw the white smoke. So who is Robert Prevost, the now named Pope Leo the 14th? And we're going to have some different Catholic leaders joining us. Joining us right now is Tim Glemkowski. He is currently the executive director of Amazing Parish. At one point was the CEO of the National Eucharist Congress. Tim, thank you for taking time to join the Jeff and Bill Show this morning.
Yes, good morning.
Yeah, so good to be with you all.
So let's talk your experience yesterday. You're watching all this. You're a leader within the Catholic Church. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it was just wild. Nobody expected. I mean, announcement in Latin, so you're kind of listening for when they say Cardinal, blank, and we all just kind of looked around because we're thinking we're going to hear Cardinal Parola and Cardinal Tagle, and so we hear something, and just wow. I'm from Chicago too, so the thought of an American Pope, but not just an American Pope, a Chicago Pope from the South Side is just crazy.
And I've got family that lived in Illinois, and they're Roman Catholic, and so checking in with them yesterday. I mean, that was, I don't think anybody expected that, and I think that Midwest Catholicism is a unique brand of Catholicism.
Not only
itself.
that, he's from Chicago, so we've got given the fact that he went to school Philly and Vanderbilt, there's a 50-50 shot that he's done shots of Malort. That's something different. I mean, that's something
I wouldn't say 50-50. I would say there's 100% chance. Yeah.
Oh, that is wonderful.
Hearing from Tim Glimkowski, he's the executive director of Amazing Parish. Now, look, Americans want to try to throw the Pope into conservative liberal camps like we have and try to take our political lens and force it upon the Roman Catholic Church. And I don't always think that's fair, but look, Francis, I think people generally looked at the Pope and said he's more progressive than what you had with Benedict, maybe with Pope John Paul II as well. So give us your early reads on the new Pope, Pope Leo XIV.
Yeah, I mean, it's exactly like you said. So the church exists to do one thing, which is to tell the world that Jesus rose from the dead and invite people to a relationship with him. That has political implications, but it's not a political thing ultimately. So those categories break when we try to talk about folks, but certainly you look at him as a continuity candidate with Pope Francis in some ways. There's a desire for a sort of a continuation of some of his project to invite the church to mission, but at the same time, very much so a unity candidate for both sides of the church, which I think in a lot of ways, I mean, for as divided as the United States has been the last decade, the church has been equally divided. And so I do see a lot of hope here. And a guy who's got a canon law degree from the Angelicum, one of the top, sort of great intellectual centers of the world, right? So a real theologian who can speak to both sides of the church, lead really well. I mean, people in Peru are saying the bishops there would call him the saint in the north. So by all accounts, this is just like a good guy, who's a Midwest guy, and sort of brings American sensibilities in things like financial management and even dealing with some of the abuse crisis to the Vatican. So I don't know. I wake up this morning with a lot of hope of certainly he doesn't fall in really either camp. By all accounts, he's like a down the middle kind of guy. But maybe that's exactly what the church needs for the next 20 years.
That voice you're hearing is Tim Glimkowski, the executive director of Amazing Parish. Now, on particular issues, our friends over at Focus on the Family looked at, how he's spoken about the sanctity of life or sexual ethics, on gender. Last year, or recently, I guess it was 2015, March for Life that took place in Peru. He tweeted in support of it, "Let's defend human life at all times." On sexual ethics, he said, the New York Times reported that in 2012, the Pope lamented Western news, media, and popular culture, which creates sympathy for belief and practices that are at odds with the gospel, citing the homosexual lifestyle and alternative families comprised of same-sex partners and their adopted children. On gender, the New York Times notes that when Pope Leo served as the bishop, he objected to a government plan to add teachings on gender identity in schools. So on some of the most debated issues of our time, he seems to clearly side with biblical orthodoxy. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, all that is to say he's Catholic, right? Like he's, there's always the question of, certainly if you look at what Pope Francis even said on those issues over the years, very similar, right? This is sort of the perennial deposit of the church. We don't really change or flex our teaching to kind of the temperaments or moods of the day. It's always a point of emphasis. What do people choose to emphasize? And certainly it seems like as a cardinal, as a bishop, that Cardinal Prevost was very much so focused on sort of doctrinal orthodoxy, but also advancing sort of life from womb to tomb. We talk about and all the implications of that, and wasn't afraid to speak out publicly against that when there was, he's retweeting things about when they were trying to fund, abortion in Illinois. He's retweeting about sort of the resistance to that, and so certainly this again feels like just a very Catholic Pope, which is not, to say like they all very much so are from the heart of the Catholic tradition. But I think what's so sort of encouraging is the way that he seems to be a really able leader, and sort of in his style and in his, by all accounts, people just looked to him. I mean, the fact that they voted for him on the fourth vote, who was considered sort of a dark horse candidate, speaks to the fact that as more of the Cardinals got to know him, they saw something in him that just felt very capable for. I mean, he's 69 years old. This is a statement of this is going to be the next 15, 20 years of leadership of the church. For them to arrive at that much confidence that quickly speaks to the fact that broadly, we need a supermajority, 2/3 plus 1 to elect a pope, and they came to that supermajority very quickly with Pope Leo XIV.
Well, and Tim, I know you I think you're here in Colorado. There was memes circulating yesterday that Shador Sanders took longer to find a team than it took them to find a pope.
That was funny. That was very funny.
God bless Shador. Yeah.
Tim Klimkowski is joining us. He's the executive director of Amazing Parish, former CEO of the National Eucharist Congress. You focus a lot, Tim, I believe, on evangelism and bringing the good news out there to folks about Jesus Christ. Talk to us about how the Catholic Church is doing that right now. Give us some, your review, maybe some stats, some numbers on how the Catholic Church is doing these days and how you might see Pope Leo XIV influencing.
Yeah, I mean, so just to sort of define that broadly, right? Like I think for a lot of Catholics, Catholicism is something they grew up in, a religious tradition or a cultural tradition. Where I'm from, I'm Italian, I'm Polish, I'm Irish, so I'm Catholic, And I think what the church for decades now has been trying to get back to is really helping people have a personal relationship with Jesus and then let everything flow from there. And so when you look at, here locally, the northern Colorado, the Archdiocese of Denver, it's all the way from Aspen to the Eastern Plains. Like if you look County Line Road here in Denver, everything north of that and then all the way west, all the way east is the Archdiocese of Denver. Since the visit of John Paul II in 1993 and the leadership of Cardinal Stafford, Archbishop Chaput, and Archbishop Aquila, this is one of the epicenters of this work of kind of the renewal of the church globally. When I worked at the Archdiocese of Denver, we had people from Germany and different places around the world calling us saying, like, what are you doing and how are you doing it? And so I think when you go to our parishes here locally, you're going to see a lot of young families. You're going to see a lot of really great, joyful people. I think people are really tired of hypocrisy in Christians and Catholics. They grew up going to Catholic school or whatever and not seeing a lot of Christ-like behavior. And so I think there's just that reform and renewal movement that's been happening for decades now. And all the popes, the last 7 popes now, have really just had a heart for that work. And so I have no doubt that Pope Leo XIV, even by his work, Pope Leo XIII was a great reformer, both socially but also spiritually for the church. He wrote 11 encyclicals. His greatest encyclical was on sort of the social teaching of the church. And the political teaching, but he also wrote, like 11 encyclicals on the Rosary. And so there's a lot of hope in that name for how he's going to continue that work of reform in the church.
That's Tim Klimkowski, Executive Director of Amazing Parish, joining Jeff and Bill live, talking about the new Pope, the American Pope. Yes, the pizza wars have begun. Italy versus Chicago's deep dish. What I want to talk to you a little bit about, Tim, is how significant could it be that he's an Augustinian, given that he's coming out of that blend of intellectualism but also doctrinal thesis. And, St. Augustine is one of the great religious thinkers of his time and an amazing touch point inside of the Catholic Church. Someone that came to the faith late, was raised in the Catholic Church, but then came late because he went out and sowed his wild oats, as they say, and then came back later and didn't even start out originally as a Catholic, was later baptized by his mentor and then ascended and became this amazing writer. In fact, did so much that even spread out into some sciences, but also Augustine's kind of the guy that did the first one that did an autobiography. So he is culturally and religiously an amazing touch point. What does it mean that the new Pope comes out of that organization?
Yeah, I think you said it well. I think when you look at St. Augustine, you look at really one of the sort of fathers of the Western intellectual tradition, right? Like one of the great men of all time. And you look at someone who's a great hope for all of us that are maybe feeling like we're too far from God to ever come back, right? We've done too much or experienced too much we're not one of those saints, who can be put up on a shelf somewhere with a statue. I think he's a sign that no one is too far from that. When you look at Pope Leo XIV, the fact that he chose this missionary vocation, right? By all accounts, talking to, different bishops. This guy has an IQ that's off the charts, right? Could have done anything that he had wanted to, and chose to become not just a priest, not just a bishop, but, a missionary. Spent most of his time in Peru, serving in a foreign country, and spoke yesterday from the loggia in Italian, Latin, and Spanish very fluently to the crowd there to show, hey, I'm not just a Chicagoan, I'm a pope for the entire world. And so I think it's a very significant. The Augustinians still follow the rule of life that was set in place by St. Augustine 1,600 years ago. So that gives me a ton of hope. I mean, mission work like that just changes you. It just gives you a perspective on the world.
I got to tell you,
so it's powerful.
Every Augustine that I've ever known, that I've ever come in contact with, has this burning heart for ministry and for mission work. They are people that when you talk about someone that is on fire for the Lord, you go to an Augustine, and those people that are involved in the missionary work, they're amazing. They're someone that really lives, breathes the church. You can't, in my opinion, you can't spend your time around an Augustine without being significantly touched by how they view God and God's work on earth.
Yeah, and I think if people are struggling to even find, information about, Pope Leo XIV and some of his public ministry and views, like in some ways this is one of the least sort of likely papal candidates in a very long time. And the analogy would be like, think of this would almost be like the small community leader, the small business leader who then got elected to government, right? Like this was a guy who was just living among the people for decades, right? He was by 45 the head of the Augustinians around the world, which is incredible, unheard of. Again, speaking to people, sort of recognizing his character, but lived a pretty low profile, hidden life, like just trying to live among the people. And bringing that, but then also the last 5 years, this experience running these massive, the dicastery for the bishops in Rome is probably the best place to be made pope from, because you've had to appoint bishops all around the world and receive sort of recommendations locally from the nuncios, the ambassadors to those countries. And so you have a real sense of what each country needs in a unique way. And again, bring that American sensibility for administration and leadership to all that. It was shock yesterday, and this morning I wake up and I'm like, this could be amazing.
Yeah, this could be amazing.
That's Tim Glimkowski, Executive Director of Amazing Parish. Tim, we got about 1 minute left. Tell us about Amazing Parish.
Yeah, Amazing Parish is a ministry started here locally by two well-known, renowned businessmen, John Martin, who's been in the oil and gas industry for years, and Pat Lencioni is a world leader in sort of organizational health. And the goal is a lot of the reason the church isn't living out her mission in parishes as well as she can is because of the sort of they're inundated with administrative challenges and leadership and operational challenges. And so we've worked with 1,100 pastors. There's 17,000 parishes in the United States. So we got a lot of work to go over the last decade, 12 years to really renew those parishes. And so I run that organization here locally. We have our offices in the tech center. It's a great kind of ministry, just doing a lot of work around the country.
Yeah, if you want to get to know more about Tim Glimkowski, go to timglimkowski.com. That's timglimkowski.com. Tim, thanks so much for taking time to join the Jeff and Bill Show this morning.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, so good to be with you guys. Have a good one. God bless you.
All right, we'll continue. You're listening to Jeff and Bill.
This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. A very historic broadcast this morning. As they say, Habemus Papam. We have a Pope. Talking to our Catholic friends, getting their perspective. What does this mean for the future of the Catholic Church? What are you anticipating as you look at this selection of Pope Leo XIV, Robert Francis Prevost, originally born here in America, in Chicago, has served mostly in Peru. As you analyze his career paths, his choices, his words, what do you think this is going to mean for the future of the Catholic Church?
How disappointed are Notre Dame alumnus this morning? Because Vanderbilt got the first pope.
Is it Villanova?
Villanova, sorry.
Villanova.
Yeah, sorry, my fault. Yeah, Villanova got the first pope.
One of those Catholic
They're going to be mad.
schools.
They're going to be so mad. Yeah. Yes, Notre Dame and alums are going to be so upset today, and it's going to be funny to watch.
I saw Villanova already spiking the football.
Oh, absolutely.
Or the basketball, as they would say.
Yes. Yeah, the idea that first American university that has a basketball national championship and a pope. Come March Madness, if there aren't a bunch of pope hats in the crowd, I'm going to be very disappointed.
Yes,
I am going to be so disappointed.
Well, he leads a great podcast, Nathan Crankfield. He's the host of the Seeking Excellence podcast, young Catholic up-and-comer. I wanted to bring him on to get his perspective as a young guy. How do you think the youth are going to respond to this? Is the Catholic Church appealing to the next generation? And I'm glad he's joining us this morning. Nathan, thanks for joining the Jeff and Bill Show.
Yeah, good morning.
Yes, thank you, Jeff and Bill. It's great to be here.
So I imagine yesterday, like a lot of people, myself included, you're watching, you see the white smoke come up, and then the Pope is revealed. Talk to us about what you were feeling yesterday.
It's extremely exciting. I think as a Catholic, and I converted to the Catholic faith when I was 13. I was in 8th grade at a Catholic school. Originally, I was baptized Lutheran, and so, I remember seeing Pope Benedict XVI get elected, but I wasn't a part of the church at the time. Pope Francis was my first conclave papal election once I was Catholic, and then this one was just a whole nother level, I think, being a husband and father and just getting to watch it with my 2-year-old son and my wife. It was, very exciting. It's really cool as a Catholic to see the whole world watching the Catholic Church, the whole world with their eyes on the Vatican for a couple weeks now, and just to see all these different news outlets, live coverage of the event. It's really special. And so I think the first, at least what I've been encouraging a lot of people, there's some people who are pessimistic already within the church. There's many people who are extremely excited. I think that the first thing is just to embrace the beauty of the moment, the beauty of the tradition. And I think seeing somebody who's coming down from the line of St. Peter, where you can trace this man's lineage all the way back to St. Peter, our first pope, is really amazing. So I think it's just really exciting and beautiful to watch and witness.
That's Nathan Crankfield. He's the host of the Seeking Excellence podcast. Now, Nathan, you do a lot of communicating, speaking, especially with younger generations. And I'm seeing headlines start to pop up that people talking about a revival that's taking place among younger generations. You saw a little bit of that in the last election where you saw particularly young men break more conservative. With the generations you're ministering to, speaking to, what are you seeing out there? What are the trends, and what do you think about this Pope from that perspective reaching the next generation?
It's a great question. I think I'm definitely a believer, or at least optimistic, about the revival of Christianity at large. There's the stats on Bible sales being up a huge percentage in recent years. My full-time job, I'm sales manager at Hallow, the Catholic prayer app, #1 prayer app in the world. And we have about 40% of our users are non-Catholic. We reach a really broad and diverse audience across 150 different countries, over 23 million downloads. And just to see the number of people who are embracing prayer and turning to God is really amazing. I think you're exactly right with the push towards conservatism, especially amongst young men. And we're seeing that really reflected, I think, most within the Catholic Church in the priesthood, where the concept or the idea of the liberal priest is really, really dying off. In seminaries, we're seeing a push towards orthodoxy, towards tradition, towards conservative values and ideals. And for somebody like myself, that's extremely exciting. It's good to see. Now, Pope Leo XIV, I think he's not known from his past. We don't know a ton about him, especially in the last decade or so. But he's not known for being a stalwart of traditionalism, although I've heard many good things and many good signs of him being more traditional minded, of having an appreciation for the traditional Latin Mass, and a lot of those same values that these young priests are being drawn towards. And so I'm really optimistic with that. I think obviously he's got to be the Pope for the universal church, not just the traditional conservative-minded Catholics in America. And so I think he has a lot to navigate there, but I am really optimistic and hopeful, especially one of the most exciting things for me is just the name choice. Pope Leo the 14th, of taking on and carrying on the great tradition and the legacy of Pope Leo the 13th, who was very much against modernism, very much against the destruction of the family, and really anticipated and foresaw a lot of the things that would happen in the 20th century that have led us to where we are today.
That's Nathan Crankfield. He's the host of the Seeking Excellence podcast, very popular among young Catholics. You can follow him on Instagram at Nathan Crankfield. That's Nathan Crankfield on Instagram. I want to ask you, I saw kind of differing responses, particularly from young conservatives. Charlie Kirk pointing out yesterday that Pope Leo was a registered Republican, was tagged in most political databases as a strong Republican, voted in primaries, has indicated he's strongly pro-life. On the other hand, I saw conservatives going, well, it seems like he may be against the MAGA movement and against the America First movement. As you were parsing and reading and looking at how young conservatives were responding to Pope Leo the 14th, what are your thoughts?
Well, I think the first thing, and I got in my fair share of arguments with people on both sides yesterday, is just to let the man finish his first paragraph, his first papal blessing, before we try to get to the point of judging it and predicting the next potentially 25 years of his papacy, right? And so that was one of my big things that I was pushing for is, yes, there's certain signs. I think there's people making arguments in both directions. Most of the things that I've seen, that I've come across, have been positive, and like I said, and I think are in alignment with what a lot of young conservatives, especially young conservative Christians, believe and want to see the world at large moving towards. But I do think it's really important just to take time and be cautiously optimistic and be hopeful that he's going to become the great leader that the Catholic Church needs and deserves at this time. The other thing I think is really important too is you just don't know what somebody's going to be like until they have embraced the responsibility and the role a little bit. I know Jeff, but I don't know how many out there, how many listeners are husbands and fathers. But for me, I know we just had our second kid, and there's something really powerful about becoming a father, and that's becoming a father of two for me. He's becoming the spiritual father of really the entire world and over 1 billion Catholics worldwide. And so to just give him some time to settle into that, because we just don't really know what he's going to be like. Even when Pope Francis was elected, a lot of liberal Catholics thought that he was going to be, and just liberals in general, thought he was going to be this stalwart for progressivism. And sure, myself and many other conservatives, especially young conservative Catholics, have their criticisms of the way Pope Francis led. But one thing that Bishop Barron pointed out, I think really accurately at the end of Pope Francis' life, is that he never did make the big changes that so many liberal Catholics hoped for. It was kind of like, I think, Joe Biden and student loan debt, right? There was a lot of kind of talk or hype around certain things that he would do that he just wasn't able to get done on the presidential side. And for Pope Francis, they don't run campaigns, right? Popes don't run campaigns. And so it was all projected onto him of what he was going to do. And he didn't make any of those massive changes that a lot of liberal Catholics believed on the day of his election. So I think similarly, it'd be foolish for us on the conservative side to think that he's going to be something that he's not, because we just don't know who he's going to be yet.
That's Nathan Crankfield, host of Seeking Excellence podcast. I want to plow that field a little bit further with you, Nathan. I was seeing a lot of those discussions online yesterday, and what came up in my mind was, with our shared faith, because I'm a Catholic as you are, Jeff's part of a cult. He's a Protestant.
I'm a protester.
Yes, yeah, he's a cult member, but we can teach him about that later. But, when we're talking about Mother Church, I was seeing a lot of people wondering whether or not Pope Leo was going to be someone that was closer to the beliefs and the ideas of President Trump, or is he going to be more liberal? And the question I have for you is, are those of us that looked at it through that filter getting it wrong? What I mean is, why are we trying to figure out whether or not the leader of our church is in agreement with our politicians that we support? Shouldn't it be 180 degrees? Shouldn't we be more concerned on whether or not our politicians are in agreement with the teachings of our church? Your thoughts?
Bill, I think it's a great point. I think that we really get things backwards when we are trying to see if Donald Trump was our standard, especially for faith, morals, and the direction that the church or any Christian denomination should be going, then I think we're in hot water there. That's definitely not the place to be. It is really tempting, I think, in this time where we're so polarized and we have MAGA hats and all of these, we're just so pro-Trump. I mean, after the assassination attempt, I know that was one thing for me that woke me up from being kind of a obviously extremely conservative and Republican, but really got me hard back on the Trump train. But I think it has to be done with moderation for any worldly leader. And I think that's true even for the popes, right? Like that we remember for people who are despairing or discouraged from this papal election that the popes are always temporary, right? Christ is forever. The church is forever. The popes come and go. And the same thing we have to have with any political leaders or celebrities, right? We shouldn't take, you wouldn't want some Taylor Swift fan saying like, oh, I wonder how much this Pope aligns with Taylor Swift's political ideas or agenda. And the same thing goes for President Trump. If you're a Catholic, I think that there should be things that President Trump says, the way he behaves, the things he's done in the past, but even things he currently does that we shouldn't agree with, that we shouldn't endorse, that we shouldn't blindly support him. I think that there are a number of Christians out there, broadly speaking, who do that, and I think it's a really dangerous place to be, to not be able to see that he makes mistakes, that he is not, St. Thomas Aquinas when it comes to moral theology and moral philosophy, and that's okay. We can have this point where we say that's okay for our president. We recognize that, again, many of us yearn for the mean tweets, right, during the 4 years of the Biden administration. But at the same time, it doesn't mean that we need to come back and hope that this Pope is going to come in and be Donald Trump in the Vatican.
Dude, that Taylor Swift line is money. Nicely done. That is awesome. High five. Well done. That's cool.
That's Nathan Craigfield. He's the host of the Seeking Excellence podcast. Be sure to give him a follow on Instagram at Nathan Craigfield. Again, Nathan Craigfield. Nathan, thanks for taking time to join us this morning.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you guys so much. It was great to be here.
All right, we got You Choose the News coming up. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show, where we are discussing the new Pope and deep theological issues. Of course, it's that time of the morning where we take the off-ramp, so to speak, to You Choose the News Loser Edition.
Yes, this is that time of the morning when all of us saints become sinners. We do something we are not supposed to at this hour of the morning. We are taking control of the airwaves and playing America's favorite fake radio news game show. It is time for the loser edition of You Choose the News. Those stories that were not deemed worthy of our attention.
You are one pathetic loser.
Loser!
Let's go. Loser! You're a loser!
The Losers Club. Bunch of losers.
You're such a loser.
You made me feel like a loser!
She's a loser. You are such a loser. Loser.
Yes, earlier this week, both Jeff and Blake thought these stories were not worth our time. So we are going to give them a second shot at glory. Yes, just like you, continue to commit that sin even though you keep going back to confession and confessing it each and every time. Yes, just like that, we are giving them another chance. As you know, this is how we roll. You know, silly stories. I give them dumb headlines and nobody that it can do anything about it is paying attention this time of the morning. So we are going to take full advantage of being unsupervised. And as always, shh, it's a secret. Blake Olson is joining us from the news department. Jeff Hunt in the studio. Gentlemen, your headlines this morning. Headline number 1, can't beat 'em, join 'em. Headline number 2, painful dum-dum. Headline number 3, unauthorized sleepover. And headline number 4, new submarine testing. Sir.
Painful dum-dum.
Yes, painful dum-dum. Just like Wesley, the dread pirate Roberts and Princess Bride, who developed an immunity to iocane powder, the blood of a U.S. man is in great demand by scientists right now. They're saying that his blood is unparalleled compared to everybody else on the planet because he's resistant to most snake venom. Yes.
Oh, is this the guy that trained himself over long periods of time?
Mr. Tim Freed has had an 18-year mission to have himself be bitten over and over again by venomous snakes. He's received more than 200 bites, more than 700 injections of venom, and it's prepared him to deal with some of the world's deadliest snakes. The issue is that he has developed antibodies that cross species. That's bizarre. He is resistant to bites from cobras, mambas, taipans, even kraits. Those things are serious. And the issue is normally because they're neurological toxins, each different form of the species has a different specific toxin. In fact, even geography separating a similar species of snake can lead to a different development of neurotoxin, meaning one antivenom is not good for a snake just a couple hundred miles down the road. But this guy seems to have cracked the code. Evolution did an extra work, and it seems that they're testing his blood because he may be somewhat of a universal donor to create that universal antivenom, which is crazy.
Is that dude married?
Yeah. I don't know.
I mean, to find a woman that's like, yeah. That's the type of man I want to build a family with.
You know what they're doing is she's just going, maybe it's this time he's going to die. Maybe it's this time. I know my wife has thought, maybe the snakes will just kill him this time. Alrighty. Blake Olson, your turn, sir.
How many times have you been bit, by the way?
Oh, gosh, numerous times. But the thing is, I keep...
They're not venomous.
No, well, I have kept venomous snakes in the past, but even then, not significantly venomous. I don't have any right now. I keep colubrids, and outside of a Karibo, colubrid bites are mild at best. Right now, the snakes that I keep, if they bite you, it feels like you're being attacked by angry Velcro. They barely break the skin if at all. Oh yeah. I've got a couple of king snakes that are I've got a couple of king snakes that are somewhat food aggressive, but they don't have good aim. So sometimes they miss when they're striking the mouse and they hit my finger and it's like it's just annoying. It doesn't feel like anything.
Gotcha.
Alrighty, Blake, your turn, sir. Can't beat 'em, join 'em, unauthorized sleepover, or new submarine testing.
Can't beat 'em, join 'em.
Alrighty, can't beat 'em, join 'em. In Chicago, a man says he did the unthinkable when he found alleged squatters in a property he was trying to sell. He moved in with them. Mario Velasquez, owner of a Southside property, said when he took some prospective realtors over to look at the house, there were some people already living there. They claimed to have a mortgage deal to it. It was absolutely fraudulent. But Mr. Velasquez said, fine, guys, I'm moving in. He moved in for a few days and then was able to negotiate a cash settlement to get the pair out. Now, the couple is going to face some criminal charges because they've done this before. So he has a track record of them doing this. So, yeah, there might actually be a way. But he's like, nah, I'm just going to hang out with you. Okay, Jeff, final choice. Unauthorized sleepover or a new submarine testing?
New submarine.
Yes, we have a new submarine we're testing for the American military, the F-18 Super Hornet. That's a plane. Yes, for the second time, one has fallen off the USS Harry Truman.
What? Second time?
Second time we've lost one off a Harry.
Have you seen that cat meme?
Yes.
Of the cat.
Yeah, exactly. Let's push it off. Yeah, that's it. That's the You Choose the News. Back to you,
All
sir.
right, we'll continue talking the new Pope. You're listening to Jeff and Bill.
This is 710 KNUS.
It's 7 a.m. in the Mile High City on this Friday, May 9th, 2025. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You've tuned in to the Jeff and Bill Show. News Talk 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights, hottest takes from the right, left, and center. Habemos Papam. We have a pope. We're going to be talking with Matt Lamb, associate editor of the College Fix. He covers a lot of things Catholic as a reporter. He'll be joining us here in just a few moments. Now is time for your daily morning dose of news and comment with Blake Olson.
Blake Olson.
Blake Olson, news and comment.
Good morning, TGIF. 46 and clear in Denver, expecting a high of 75 today. The 7-10 5-day forecast coming up. Our top story, the acting FEMA administrator, Cameron Hamilton, has been removed from the position.
Hamilton had been leading efforts to reform FEMA and cut costs, but that may not have been enough for Trump administration officials, some of whom believe there's no need for the agency at all.
Ira Spitzer reporting Thursday, Hamilton told lawmakers on Capitol Hill that he did not think it was in the public's interest to eliminate the agency and that the White House and Congress should determine the most logical use of federal funding for emergency response. Hamilton's role is now being filled by David Richardson, who was appointed in January as Assistant Secretary for the Department of Homeland Security's Countering Weapons of Mass Destruction Office. American Cardinal Robert Prevost is celebrating his first Mass as Pope Leo XIV. Today's Mass at the Sistine Chapel was attended by the cardinals who elected the Pope this week during a 2-day conclave at the Vatican. Raymond Arroyo is there.
He was a missionary in Peru for a very long time. Spent most of his life there, 20-something years. But he's a Chicago native. So he has a feel both for Peru and Latin and South America, as well as the United States. And he's only been at the Vatican for 3 years. But he ran the bishop's office, the dicastery of bishops. They pick and choose the bishops that populate the world, okay? So he knew a lot of these men.
Here was the crowd after he emerged on Thursday. Very dramatic scene. Amazing video and audio. Police in Boulder looking for a woman accused of threatening a group of students and teachers with a knife. 31-year-old Alyssa Barger was arrested on May 5th on a charge of felony menacing. Barger was released on a personal recognizance bond on Tuesday. The Boulder DA's office filed additional felony menacing and child abuse charges against Barger Thursday, but she was not in court. A warrant for failure to appear has been issued, though Barger has no fixed address and few ties to the community. 47 is reportedly thinking about raising income taxes on wealthy Americans. Several media outlets say Trump is considering the tax hike to help pay for the larger tax breaks he enacted in 2017, which are set to expire next year. NYPD arresting about 8 pro-Hamas nut jobs in Brooklyn one day after similar protests at Columbia University. A protest group set up camp Thursday in the quad at Brooklyn College last night. Social media live streams showed 50 to 100 officers clashing with protesters. Shenane. Jazzy Jasmine Crockett has returned. Let's go to the dumb zone.
It's actually, I mean, I'm not going to say that like a left-leaning person cannot be violent, because that would be like crazy to say that somebody can't be. But baby, y'all got the white supremacists galore, okay? Like all of them. You got the Proud Boys. You got the neo-Nazis. You have people that literally should be classified as domestic terrorists, because a lot of times that is what they are doing. They are engaging in domestic terrorism, and guess what? They all align with your side. Yeah, including the KKK. So, like, I mean, this is who aligns with that. So, like, inherently, in like who you are, y'all are violent.
Wow. Okay, it's time,
right, let's talk who the radical Islamists align with. We want to play that game?
Exactly.
You know, the ones that are calling for the eradication of all Jews? Who are they voting for?
Exactly.
It's not Donald Trump.
She knows. It's such a fake fraud, everything. The act is just amazing. She must be just, honestly, she's racking it up with this little act.
No, her bank accounts, cha-ching, cha-ching,
Oh, yeah.
cha-ching, cha-ching, all the whole way she's riding that to the bank.
She can't even fake it well, man. I mean, she really can't.
Oh my goodness. If it isn't Little Miss Attitude.
God. Man, we'll see what she does next week.
Keep putting it out there.
Yeah.
It's like I was getting messages the other day. Do you know how great Tim Walz is? I'm like, he's great at electing Republicans. Keep running them.
And am I missing something here? What is this Bebe thing? Bebe.
That like a left-leaning person cannot be violent because that would be like crazy to say that
Is this
somebody
a new
can't
thing?
be. But baby.
What is that?
Who knows?
What is that?
Just a bunch of old dudes.
Is this some hip?
Yeah, what the
something
kids
that
saying
we don't
these
know
days.
what the kids are saying? Oh my Lord!
It's like when my kids was it the Riz? You got the Riz? I'm like, I don't even know what that is.
Oh my gosh!
Bebe.
Forcing it.
That's how I'm going to refer to you now, Blake.
Bebe. Oh man, I love it. Nuggets and Thunder tonight. Game 3 in Lodo. 42 in Parker, 43 in Arvada, 46 in Denver. Jeff and Billy.
Jeff and Bebe.
Bebe. Speaking of Bebe.
I feel like you're flirting with me.
His bicycle with his, in all fairness, with his husband on the back, which is a nice, loving relationship.
He was talking about Buttigieg yesterday after we went off the air. It was so great. I got to play it for you real quick. Did you hear this? Really quick.
Bicycle with his, in all fairness, with his husband on the back, which is a nice, loving relationship. But he didn't have a clue.
Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Beautiful spring weather will be moving in for this Mother's Day weekend. Get out and enjoy some beautiful front range weather. Temperatures will be in the low to mid 70s today, mid to upper 40s tonight, mid to upper 70s Saturday. For today and Saturday, only a small chance of mainly an isolated thunderstorm over the mountains. Reaching into the low 80s Mother's Day Sunday, a better chance Sunday for some afternoon thunder, staying quite warm into Monday and Tuesday. Weather sponsored by Colorado's Best Roofing, reminding you to protect your home from the harsh Colorado weather and schedule your free no-obligation roof inspection today at roofingcolorado.com. That's roofingcolorado.com. Meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
I'm going to get my Latin down by the end of this show today. Habemos papam, we have a pope. And he's an American, Robert Francis Prevost.
USA. Is that what we're supposed to do?
Chicago.
It's a
That's
chance.
right. Did you see some of the memes yesterday that showed the like red, white, and blue smoke coming out of the...
Oh, yeah. My favorite one was someone that had used Photoshop, and when he was first stepping out onto the balcony, they gave him an air horn and a big foam finger that says God number 1. I was like, that's funny. That's funny.
Babylon B2 said that upon the announcement of the Pope, a screeching American bald eagle with an AR-15 in its grasp flew by.
That's funny.
To give us some insight on this, he's the associate editor of the College Fix. He covers a lot of things from the Catholic perspective. Journalist Matt Lamb joins us. Good morning, Matt. Thanks for joining the Jeff and Bill Show.
Hey, good morning.
Yeah, thanks for having me back on.
So give us your perspective on the decision yesterday. I mean, I'm a Protestant, and I was watching it. For me, it was a historic moment. It was emotional for me to see so many people celebrating. Roman Catholics make up 50% of Christianity globally. So this is a big impact. Your initial thoughts, sir?
Yeah, it's a momentous occasion, and I do have to correct everyone. He's not from Chicago. He's from the south suburbs of Chicago. He actually lived not too far from where I grew up. His dad is actually the principal at the school my mom and uncle went to, although not at the same time. And so I do think his first papal decree actually will be declaring that it's pop, not soda. And so given his Midwest background.
That in deep dish pizza is the only real pizza.
Yeah, exactly. But no, this is great. I'm encouraged that he chose the name Pope Leo the 14th. Pope Leo the 13th was a great champion for the rights of workers, but also warning against socialism. So I think finding the right balance between how to support workers, how to support families without embracing socialism and respecting the role of businesses in the economy. So that is an encouraging sign.
Matt, you cover the Roman Catholic Church. You study this. You write a lot about it. Bill and I were talking earlier about how maybe the Italians weren't so happy about it. Tell me how you think global Catholicism is looking at the first American Pope.
Well, he has sort of a good position because he was in Peru for many years, first as a missionary priest and then as a bishop. But of course, he understands the American political system as well. So I think that is great experience. I think Pope Francis lacked that understanding of the American Catholic Church that I think Pope Leo XIV has from his time growing up here. He also led a religious order, the Augustinians. He led the Midwest Augustinians, so he has experience working within the American Catholic Church. And then he also was part of the office that appointed the bishops, as Raymond Arroyo noted in that clip you played earlier. So I think he has a better handle perhaps on the bishops and the sort of inner workings of the Vatican, even though he's only been there a few years. So I think that will be positive. And frankly, I think it's my Italian bias, but he just looks like a pope. I mean, he looks like a lot of my Italian uncles, so I sort of have some fondness for him already.
Yeah, he's got the olive tone skin. He's got the little smile. And I was hearing just on social media, some Italian Catholics were upset because, again, there's this thing in international soccer, especially like with countries in England, where if you don't have an Englishman coaching the national team in England, it seems like a heresy. And because the Vatican is centered in Italy, there's this desire inside of Italy for the Pope to be Italian. And now they've gone Polish, German, Argentinian, and American? The fact that it was an American has kind of shocked my Italian Catholic friends. Like, wait. They feel like they're due a draft pick. Is kind of the idea that sooner or later we should get one. However, I think you've got something there that because he approaches this, he's been in Italy, and he does look Italian, maybe they'll warm up to him.
Yeah, I mean, he speaks many languages fluently. I mean, as far as I know, he's the first pope that speaks English fluently, of course, because he's the first American pope. And so I think he will be able to use that to his advantage. I think the American Catholic Church, maybe just sort of have a bias, but it's one of the more powerful and growing churches. It's also growing in Latin America. It's also growing in Africa. So I think those experiences will help him perhaps bridge some of the problems that Pope Francis had, not just doctrinally, but also just with his management of the Catholic Church. Many of the cardinals that were voting did not really know each other for various reasons, including that they were picked from far-flung areas. But I think he had mismanaged a lot of things when he was Pope.
Oh, there are two things that I want to talk with you there, Matt Lamb. That's Matt Lamb, Associate Editor of the College Fix. You've heard him before here on the Jeff and Bill Show. We're really excited that he spent some time with us today. We appreciate your time, sir. First, I want to talk about the idea that he's fluent in English, except during his very first appearance, he spoke in Italian, Spanish, and Latin. He didn't speak in English. I was seeing some American commentators get very mad that he didn't speak in English. What's your opinion of the fact that Pope Leo didn't use his native tongue during his first appearance as Pope Leo?
I'm not going to bash the Pope for not speaking English in his first address. Unless the commentator was Jeff or someone else on your show, I guess I'll say I think if you're mad about that, maybe find something else to get upset about. Hopefully, I'm hoping he will come to America to visit where he grew up, and not just because I might be able to make a nice little side business giving a tour of the places he ate at or used to, watch football at, or he was the principal at. Although I do have a lot of room at my house, I could probably run a good parking lot. And anyways, that's for another day. So yeah, great. I'm not too upset about that. Hopefully he'll give future interviews and addresses in English. But of course, Latin is the official language of the Catholic Church. And so appropriately, he gave most of his address in Latin.
Yeah, and I thought it was significant that he didn't, and I thought it was a good thing personally. And the reason I felt it was very smart of him not to address the crowd in English is because the first thing that everybody is going to lead with is the American Pope. And if he did any of that first address in English, that's the clip. It's him speaking in English. And there's this difficulty with how American Catholics are somewhat viewed at times versus, especially in Italy and some of the other longer versions of the church, they still view us as newcomers in many ways. And so for us to get someone in the seat of St. Peter, it can be very difficult. And I think I'm of the opinion that if he would have talked in English during his first address, it would have been off-putting for some members of the church elsewhere around the globe. Instead, he stuck with Italian, Latin, and Spanish. He even did a shout out to his congregation in Peru in Spanish, and he didn't say anything necessarily to Chicago. I think strategically, that's a very, very clever move when you're trying to assume the throne of the leader of the church around the world. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it was a great idea. It was, of course, appropriate to speak in Latin, being the language of the Catholic Church, speak in Italian, of course, being in Rome, and as you mentioned, speak in Spanish to people in Peru, people who are there who speak Spanish. And certainly those are some of the largest languages. Would have been quite interesting if he knew Mandarin Chinese, for example, but he knows the languages he does. And yeah, I think not emphasizing the American angle at the beginning was a good choice. I mean, if you read different commentary online, people are saying that one reason he was possibly able to get through that bias against Americans is because he is seen more as a Peruvian bishop than an American bishop because he spent so much time in Peru. He was a mission priest there. He was a bishop. So he may have spent about the same amount of time in Peru as he spent in America. And I do think that may have helped him get elected.
That's Matt Lamb, associate editor of the College Fix. We're talking about the election of a new pope. Pope Leo XIV, Robert Francis Prevost. I saw some commentary, Matt, that said, well, if we're going to have the first American pope, Cardinal Dolan would have been a great American pope. And reflecting back on, I think it was the 76 Republican convention where they chose Bush or Ford over Reagan, those types of things. Are we missing a good opportunity here by not having Dolan as the pope?
I think Cardinal Dolan certainly is probably more well known in America. He has some good media savvy. He goes on Fox News, which is a great way to get Donald Trump's attention. But maybe that worked against him because I think after Trump picked himself as pope, which is impossible because he's not a baptized Catholic, he picked Cardinal Dolan. So unfortunately, maybe that sunk his choices. I do think Cardinal Dolan would have been another good choice for an American American Pope. Of course, coming from New York, there's some symbolism. One of the first places, one of the original colonies. And so that would have been great. I think he may still have a role in the Vatican now that we have an American Pope. Perhaps he'll elevate more American cardinals, although I don't want all of them elevated to powers of position like Cardinal McElroy or Cardinal Cupich. So we'll see. Cardinal Dolan is actually past the retirement age, so he may have a future role in the Vatican because he may be removed as the leader of the Archdiocese of New York.
That's Matt Lamb, associate editor of the College Fix, joining Jeff and Bill live. We're talking about Pope Leo. One of the things you had mentioned earlier was the idea of Pope Leo and managing the church. That's something that I like the fact you brought that up because it's an undercurrent I haven't heard a lot of people talk about. The church financially, the books aren't good. Here in Colorado, our current legislature is having to deal with $1 billion budget shortfall. Rumor has it Vatican's 2 Bs in the red, that they are underwater significantly. Now, Pope Leo is a mathematician. He does have a little bit of background in understanding, not necessarily finance, but at least understanding which side of the ledger should be red and which side should be black and which is good and which is bad. Do you think that him having that degree in the hard sciences helped him be more palatable to some of the other cardinals when they were making this choice?
It's very possible. In addition to his degree, he also served as the provincial superior, so essentially the leader of the Augustinian religious order in the Midwest and then worldwide, and then as a bishop. So it's very possible that administrative experience will help him. Pope Francis, when he was in Argentina, when he was helping lead the Jesuits, there was actually some problems he had. He was too authoritarian. And so that led to actually some conflict with the Jesuits. It's sort of something we forget, that there was actually some pushback from his own Jesuit priests way back when. And so I think that good administrative experience is needed. I mean, the Pope has one of the toughest jobs. He has 1 billion people spread across hundreds of different cultures, speaking hundreds of different languages. And he's not only just a spiritual leader who needs to guide the Catholic Church, but as you mentioned, they have buildings, they have personnel, they have payroll to make, they have charities to oversee. And so it is a very difficult job. And so hopefully he can use his past executive and administrative experience to right the ship and to take on the deficit. Now, frankly, taking your word that the deficit's $2 billion, that's not too bad compared to what the United States is facing right now. But I do hope he can use that experience for good and to stabilize the finances, which will ultimately help the Catholic Church continue to do their work.
That's Matt Lamb, associate editor of the College Fix. We're talking about the election of Pope Leo XIV. All right, both you guys, this is a question for both of you. Coming from a Protestant, where are we on the sexual abuse issue within the Catholic Church? Has it been sufficiently addressed? Or are there still some issues we need to deal with? Matt, I'll go to you first.
I think it does still need to be addressed. I think in the past 2 decades, since a lot of those stories broke, including the Boston Globe, there have been more procedures put in place, more ways to report abusers. I think back in the 60s and 70s, the idea was that people could be rehabilitated, priests could be rehabilitated and brought back into ministry. And I think that's been moved away from. There are several stories actually about the new Pope and the way he handled sexual abuse back when he was in Chicago. It wasn't with a priest from his order, but a priest who had been credibly accused was allowed to stay at a property owned by the Augustinians, and it was only a block from a Catholic grade school. So I think that's a controversy. Apparently, the cardinals were trusting enough of him that he was not at fault for the way he handled that situation. So I do think that is something that people might be interested in. But yeah, I think that there are more layers in place. Abuse in the Catholic Church, thankfully, is much lower than in public schools. Insurance companies don't charge Catholic churches more for liability, so their own actuaries don't view Catholic churches as riskier for possible abuse of children than other businesses and organizations. And so I think that's a positive sign.
I like your answer, Matt, and I'm going to follow up on that. In addition to the thing in Chicago, I believe there were 2 accusations while he was working in Peru, not of himself, but of other priests in the area. And there's some critique that some of the paperwork filed with the Vatican soft-sold some of the abuse allegations. But the defense that I have for Pope Leo is one of the first things he did is tell the women to go to authorities and make the accusations because they are the ones that are best informed and have the best tools in order to investigate. And I think that's a better step forward as far as abuse allegations than what we saw under both Benedict and JP. So that to me is something that is nice. Also, it doesn't seem to be a long list, nothing on the scale of something like Boston. So even with these small numbers, there are questions about it. However, and this is kind of where I want to go, is the idea that he's an Augustinian or an Augustin, depending on how we pronounce it, and how that's going to impact his leadership. Now, give me just a little bit of leash here. I think that some of his Augustin training was what you saw in that allegation inside of Chicago, because, oh my God, my religious teachers are really going to hurt me here, as I'm certain I'm not going to get it exactly right. But early on, when Augustine was in charge, and when he'd come back when he was in Hippo, there were some priests that basically had technically abandoned their faith in order to not be killed by some invaders. And at the time, there were people inside of the church that said once they had forsaken God, or once they've done this, they are now sinners, and they're not allowed to come back into the church unless they are rebaptized. And Augustine pushed and said, no, these people are flawed, that, they can participate in the church because God is the vehicle for the sacraments and for the church, not the individual. The individual can be flawed, but God is still perfect, and it doesn't denigrate the message. And as long as they show contrition and everything else, then they can be brought back in. There was a real argument there, and I kind of see that approach with the guy in Chicago, that they didn't necessarily take an opinion, but understand that this person is flawed. We're not going to facilitate necessarily putting him with the kids. I understand it being close to a school, but he wasn't working at the school, but he was giving him the space in order to find redemption and to, repent. And so that's kind of what I think. But I could be wrong, and you could have a totally different interpretation. But where I want to go with this is, how important is it that Pope Leo is an Augustine or an Augustinian? What does it mean about the direction the church could be headed, in your opinion?
I think it is good they have more of a focus, I think, on classical theological training. They're known for being as logically liberal as the Jesuits, and that was one of the concerns, I think, about Pope Francis. So I think that's a good sign. Of course, the Augustine, there's different groups. We don't know exactly, just because he was one order, what he'll do, but that's what we'll be looking for in the coming years.
What do you think is one of the biggest challenges that Pope Leo is going to be facing as he ascends to Peter's throne?
So there's a lot of Vatican insiders, and a lot of people who have been in the Vatican a long time. People, Pope Francis. So just like any executive, he'll have to decide who he wants to get rid of, to keep. Everyone has their own agenda, and he'll have to deal with that. I think the restrictions on the Latin Mass, well, personally, I'm against them because I go to Latin Mass, so I think he'll have to deal with that issue. Pope Francis, the first pope, many years to put more restrictions on the Latin Mass. The prior two popes have been more permissive of it, and I think that caused a lot of backlash, particularly in the American Catholic. The Latin Mass was thriving, and I think that was an issue where Pope Francis made a serious mistake, and he had bad advisors around him, many of whom still hold positions of power, of course, in the Vatican.
It's Matt Lamb, associate editor of the College Fix. You can follow Matt on X at Matt Lamb, LAMB 22, Matt Lamb 2222 on X. Matt, thank you for taking time to join us this morning, talk about this historic election of Pope Leo XIV.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
I want to hear from our listeners. 303-696-1971, particularly if you're Roman Catholic. Look, I'm not Roman Catholic. I'm Protestant. I still find this very important because 50% of Christians globally are Roman Catholic. What do you think this is going to mean for the future of the Catholic Church? Do you like him? Are you still getting to know him? Do you have an opinion about him? And are you concerned about some of the directions that he may take the Catholic Church? Would love to hear from you. Phone lines are open, 303-696-1971, or text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line, 720-819-5115, 720-819-5115. Question I got for you, too. I was listening to you and Matt both go back and forth, well, it's a good thing that he didn't speak in English. Well, why? I mean, we're Americans. We should be celebrating. He should be up there speaking in English from my perspective. He should have put on a MAGA hat. 303-696-1971, or text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line, 720-819-5115. Charlie Kirk pointing out he's registered as a Republican, and in political databases, he's listed as a strong Republican. So what do you think the Pope Donald Trump's relationship is going to look like? Give us a call or text us. Look, are you ready to transform your kitchen or bathroom into a stunning masterpiece? Look no further than The Art of Granite, your premier destination for exquisite granite, marble, and quartz countertops. For over 15 years, Mitch Floria, owner of The Art of Granite, has been crafting and installing custom countertops, fireplaces, showers, and more. Their team of experts will guide you through the selection process, ensuring you find the perfect stone to match your style and budget. Visit their showroom in Golden or browse their online inventory at theartofgranite.com. Discover the endless possibilities for your home renovation project. Mention KNUS and get a free bathroom countertop with new kitchen countertops, or choose a free kitchen or bathroom sink with any countertop package. Don't wait. Transform your home into the oasis you deserve. Schedule your free consultation with Mitch today. Go to theartofgranite.com. That's theartofgranite.com. Mention KNUS for those exclusive savings and transform your kitchen or bathroom dreams into reality with The Art of Granite. Go to theartofgranite.com. How do you think J.D. Vance and this new pope are going to react and interact with each other?
Let's hope they don't meet each other. Touch of death.
All right. Join the conversation. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. We got some breaking news. Retired Supreme Court Justice David Souter has died at the age of 85. Souter was nominated in 1990 by President George H.W. Bush. He was replaced after his retirement in 2009 by Justice Sonia Sotomayor, who was appointed by President Barack Obama. Souter often vexed Bush and other Republicans by aligning himself with liberal justices in his decisions. And this kind of kicked off, the whole Federalist Society movement to try to make sure we actually get conservative judges in there when Republicans are president. But again, David Souter, dead at the age of 85. Let's get to the phone lines. We're also talking new Pope. What are your thoughts on him? What do you think about the future of the Catholic Church? Are things turning around? Have they sufficiently addressed the sexual abuse issues? We're watching young conservatives really come in and embrace the Catholic Church, the Latin Mass. Let's get into all of it. What do you think? How are they going to relate to Donald Trump and J.D. Vance? We're going to get to the phone lines with Mary here in just a second. Look, it's going to be a warm day. Yesterday cold, today warm, the weekend even warmer. If you don't have your furnace and AC figured out, you're going to be bouncing all over the place with this Colorado weather. We had that problem where our AC went out, our furnace was not strong enough to really heat and cool our house, so we had pockets of our house that were just problems. We called L&L Heating and Air Conditioning. They came in, fixed it, and absolutely nailed it. One-day installation, no stress, personal service from start to finish. They didn't have guys showing up in dented, white, broken-down vans trying to fix our AC. They great professional from top to bottom. Even followed up to make sure everything was perfect. Now our home is finally comfortable no matter what the weather. And with L&L Heating and Air Conditioning, we've got even more peace of mind. Here's some of the deals they got going on right now. Free programmable thermostat and carbon monoxide detector with new furnace or air conditioner installation. No emergency charges, $0 trip fee, price match value guarantee on equipment, free estimates, licensed and insured, and a 5-year labor warranty. Everything works great. Our family couldn't be happier. So if you're looking for fast, honest, and reliable service, I highly recommend L&L Heating and Air Conditioning, 720-851-1691, 720-851-1691. They also worked with us to make sure we got tax breaks with some of the stuff that we installed here. So visit their website, bestdenverhvac.com. That's bestdenverhvac.com. I'm sure glad we called him. That number again, 720-851-1691. All right, Mary Golden, good morning. You're on the Jeff and Bill Show.
Yes, good morning.
Good morning. Thank you so much for taking my call. I just wanted to say I'm thrilled about Pope Leo XIV. And I know many are, because what a big surprise.
Yes.
But beautiful example of how the Holy Spirit works.
Now, Mary, you got to tell me, what was your reaction when you heard that it was the American? Because between you and me, you could have taken me to Vegas, given me $1 million, and asked me to handicap and bet on who was going to be the Pope. And I was never going to put money down on Leo, specifically because he's an American. What did you think the first time that you heard?
Was wow. That was really it. Wow. No way. And I had just minutes before had heard Bishop Robert Barron speaking about how, oh no, it couldn't be an American pope. They wouldn't do that. America's got to go through a lot more in order for a pope to rise from America. And then bam.
Yeah.
Wow. That was really
Now,
Wow.
Now, from your perspective, do you think that possibly, again, I hate to say this is a compromise candidate because we have only 4 ballots, and you kind of figure that inside the conclave, we don't know exactly how it works, but you figure the first ballot is going to be take the temperature. You know, who's kind of the leader? Where are people sitting? The second one is sort of sorting out the chaff from the wheat. Who really has a shot, who doesn't. Ballot 3 is where you really kind of coalesce the power brokers, and to get to Leo on 4, that is crazy. What do you think that meant as far as him being, is it a compromise candidate, or was it just that he very early on clicked all the boxes that they were looking for? What's just your sitting on the sidelines impression?
Well, I haven't listened to a lot of people discuss, who he was.
Yeah.
But hearing some of that is, he did seem to check a lot of boxes, but he was also just quietly in the background. And, who knew about him? And I think, again, this is, as somebody who believes, vehemently in the working of the Holy Spirit here, is, all right, here's this guy kind of sitting back here, and this is who the church needs right now, and particularly the church here in America, because, as a lot of people have moved away from the faith, and you've got young people, though, who are looking and grasping for something that is authentic, is orthodox, and now we have this Pope from Chicago that can speak to some of this, especially given his role in the dicastery of bishops. Then I think it's exactly how I think the Holy Spirit works, and that's who I'm crediting for all of that. Who knows how those votes went?
Me too. I thought it was absolutely the movement of the Holy Spirit, that because it happened within 4 votes, this was something that there was a feeling that God was present in that room and really directing where he wanted the church to go. Now, I do want to talk to you. Did you hear any, and I want to see if Jeff did either, did you see the interviews with his brothers, Pope Leo's brothers out of Chicago?
They were talking about what they do. They play Wordle.
I did not.
Yes.
I did not.
Yeah.
I did
Okay.
not. So.
Now, here's one of the coolest stories I heard yesterday, and I wanted to share it with you before we move on to a break. Is that one of his brothers was talking about, as they were growing up, when Robert, now Pope Leo, was in 1st grade, a neighbor lady, a couple of doors down from them, turned to him and said, "You are going to be the first American pope."
Really?
Oh
yes.
My gosh.
And when he was in 1st grade, and here's one of the reasons why, he would go around and play priest. His brother shared the story that he used to set up the ironing board and do his own mass, and he would do it in the yard. He would do it in the house. And yes, they said this is a lifelong calling for him. At 8th grade, he left home and went to basically a monastery where they taught high school. And he spent 4 years there, and then he went on to Villanova and was there. So this is something that was deeply on his soul from when he was a kid. So as we see him ascend, understand that, back in 1st grade, there's a woman in the south side of Chicago that looked at him and said, "You're gonna be Pope."
That little prophet in Chicago.
Exactly.
Oh my gosh.
Hey, Mary, thanks. Have a great weekend.
Mary,
Appreciate
that
it.
was a wonderful call. All right, speaking of the weekend, Sunday, Mother's Day, we have the solution for you if you're scrambling last minute. Great place to take your mom. Quality food. Our friends at the Black Eyed Pea, Steve and Michelle, have 8 locations. There's sure to be one near you. When's the last time you took the family to eat at the Black Eyed Pea? This Sunday, May 11th, being Mother's Day, they have a special menu. It kicks off 10:30 in the morning. Check this out. Mother's Day includes grilled salmon, hand-carved prime rib, the salmon and shrimp combo, and the chicken cordon bleu. Mom's sure to find a favorite with one of those, and all entrees are served with 2 sides, including fresh baked rolls and your choice of a featured dessert. Listen to these desserts: cherry cobbler or beach cobbler served with ice cream. They also have that 1-pound chocolate cake. So come celebrate Mother's Day. Again, 10:30 a.m. this Sunday. Let them do the cooking for you. Keep it in Colorado. Quality food, and your mom's going to love it. Your kids are going to love it. It's one of those great restaurants that all 3 generations can embrace. I love everything about this restaurant. I know you will as well. Visit the Black Eyed Pea this Sunday, starting at 10:30 for their special Mother's Day menu. We'll continue talking the new Pope You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader News Talk 710 KNUS.
Bill, you know who would have made a great pope?
Who?
Dan Caplis.
Oh, yeah.
I've known
Yes.
Dan for
Yes.
over a decade, but he's married. He's got a family. I don't even know if they allow you to do that, but if you're ever injured in a automobile accident, Dan Caplis is the guy to call. He has been serving the people of Colorado for over 40 years, getting them justice when they've been hurt in serious motor vehicle crashes. But listen to what he's delivered in the courtroom. Dan is believed to be the only lawyer in Colorado history to win 5 straight multi-million-dollar verdicts in Colorado crash cases. Dan is also believed to have won the largest truck crash verdict in Colorado history. Dan Caplis Law is so trusted. He's the official law firm partner of the Denver Nuggets and the Colorado Avalanche. Dan Caplis Law is a serious firm for serious cases. Dan accepts righteous injury cases on a percentage fee basis so that he can represent good people from all walks of life without regard to ability to pay. So if you need Dan's help, give him a call. Here's the phone number, 303-770-5551. That's 303-770-5551. Or hit dancaplisLaw.com. That's Dan, C-A-P-L-I-S law.com. All right, so I'm out of here along with Bill. And filling in for us is the great Pete Boyles. Now, Pete's going to take this conversation in a totally different direction.
As he
which
should.
Is, exactly.
Yes.
And if you could imagine what Pete's going to talk about with regards to popes, well, Bill and I are having theological conversations and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Pete is going to talk about the history of the bad popes.
Yes. And if people think I'm an apostate, just to wait. This is going to get good, people. Yeah, you got to wait for this one. This is going to be
Pete
fantastic.
was an altar boy at one point.
Oh, yeah. He is a broken Catholic, and it's fantastic because he has enough of the background to be dangerous, to be very, very dangerous, as he is on so many topics, because he knows, and he knows where the bodies are buried, and he has grown up in the system, and he gets it. So, yeah, this is going to be a wonderful conversation. You got to stay tuned for this one. This is going to be fantastic.
And then Saturday, Stephen Tubbs is back, filling in for John Caldera.
I know. I still think he's going to plant drugs here in the studio so I can get arrested on Monday. I'm just saying. I think that's what's going to happen.
Anything to get Bill into jail.
That's what I think is gonna
Finally.
happen. Yes.
Well,
yes.
you know, Bill, if you just quote unquote did what Tina Peters did, bring in some guys and take some copies of the vote.
Yes.
9 years. You could end up in 9 years in prison.
Hey, there we go.
That's the way it works in Colorado. So I'm out of here. Stephen Tubbs is going to be in on Saturday. Pete Boyles is going to be in for the next 2 hours. So we got a whole lot coming up. I think that's the music. So we're going to be talking popes with Pete Boyles, but it's going to be on the other side. The history of the bad popes. You're not going to want to miss it. It's classic. Peter Boyles. Love it. Not going to want to miss that. And then might even get a word from Stephen Tubbs in here coming in a second. You've been listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
We are Denver's talk leader. This is News Talk 710 KNUS. We'll catch you Monday.
There you go, everybody. Good morning. I'm Peter Boyles, filling in for the boys who are just heading for the doors. 710 KNUS Denver's talk station. It's a beautiful, beautiful morning in the city. It is a motorcycle day, and tomorrow back here at 9 o'clock. Following this man, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, my colleague and my good friend, and he's going to return to talk radio as like the Swallows come back to Capistrano, the Buzzards come back to Lima, Ohio. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, the one and the only Stephen Tubbs. Hey, man, good morning.
Good morning, brother, and happy Friday to you. Yeah, I decided, you know what, I'm going to take advantage of the offer. Kelly was kind enough to say, hey, you want to fill in for John? And
sure.
It's been like more than a year and a half, so I thought, well, you know, Peter Boyles has come back like 14 times in his career. Why don't I?
Me and Sinatra.
Right. It's gonna be strange, but yet, you know, with my current job, I've had you know, the great opportunity to bring my bosses from the DEA in, and you know, so it's not like I haven't been to the studio, but I do know the date. It was November 3rd of 2023, so like almost a year and a half since I signed off. Yeah.
Hey, so you're taking Jeffy's shooting today, or you guys have talked about that, or is that off?
Yeah, so today one of my favorite words. It's the penultimate Citizens Academy for the Drug Enforcement Administration here in the Rocky Mountains. Jeff is coming out. We've got about a dozen or so folks that'll go out to the range and kind of get a briefing on how DEA agents, you know, go through their training out at the range, and then they get to shoot. So I don't know if he's bringing Bill target practice or not, but I think Jeff's gonna have some. Yeah, Jeff's gonna have some great times, and it's been terrific.
What are they going to shoot? What kinds of guns?
I think they're going to shoot an AR and then the standard Glock. I mean, they're not pulling out the full arsenal.
Okay.
But it'll be great. And then tomorrow morning, starting at 7, and then I'll hand it off to you at 9.
Me and you, brother. That'll
be great.
Kelly told me. He said, "Hey, you know, tomorrow Steph's going to be here, and that's going to be cool." So now, you'll be in studio.
Yeah, I may have Pete. I may have you know, one or two people from my current employer listening right now, so I just want to say publicly, I am forever grateful that they let me go back.
Well, you know, I just finished yesterday. There's a new documentary going to be done on Alan Berg, and I spent an hour and a half, almost 2 hours, talking to these people, and it's amazing, you know, how the business has changed and what things have been the same and what things have now been totally different. And one of the things I think about this business, I always call it a junkie business. You just don't get it out of your system all of that easy, especially once it embeds, and you got to, you know, man, can I do talk radio, or should I call you up and talk to you about your insurance needs?
Listen, I've known you for 31 years now, if you can believe it. Wow. And I knew from Jump Street that you were one that it's coursing through your veins. Wow. I mean, my God, you almost died on us on the air a few years ago.
Hey.
I mean, for God's sake, and then now you're back. I mean, and strong, and
it's doing good,
you know what? Yeah. It's awesome. It's awesome. So I look forward to it, Pete.
Right, man.
Thank you. Have a good rest of your morning, and then I'll see you tomorrow.
Thanks, Steph. Okay. All right, so I'm Peter Boyles. Good morning. Thank you. And who's got the con? Kelly Michaels got the con. We have had nonstop for the last couple of days. We have a new pope. And I'm a history geek. I've visited the Vatican. I've been on historic tours of the Vatican. I really, really, really enjoy reading religious history and really read and understanding exactly where these things come from. And it was really funny. I made a remark that got an eyebrow, but I said, you know, it's interesting because God's an American. How many people believe that God's an American? And so we have an American Pope. Why did it take so long? Well, first of all, and then another question, and I was writing questions down last night. Why have we never had a black Pope? We've never had an Irish Pope. They've, by and large, been Italians. We've had a Polish Pope. We've had a German Pope, and he had to bail out. but by and large, they're all Italian popes, and this guy is an American pope. Well, like I said, we know we know that God's an American, and so this just about makes sense. So this is the first U.S. pope. I don't know if that makes the big deal out of all of it, but does anybody know, how many of you out there know about how the papal state got created? And by the way, isn't it interesting? There's never been a pope calling himself Peter II. Jesus II would be blasphemy, but there is no successor to Jesus. But he was divine, and the popes are merely men. And as someone were elected pope, who was baptized birth name were Jesus, he would take a new name for himself. So, I mean, it's a really interesting system how this works. The conclave, the voting, is pretty recent stuff in the history of the church as well. But unlike lots of other things, the Vatican is, I believe that there has been a selection of an American pope for a reason other than spiritual or religious. Do you believe that? 303-696-1971. That's right, because we're not doing the Saturday morning show. One of my favorite human beings on the face of the earth is Blake. Brother, I screwed up. I drove right by you.
Hey, I'm used to it. Jeff does it every morning.
Well, with apologies. With apologies.
No, man. We try to get the news going so you can get on with your
whatever.
Show.
Yeah.
How are you doing?
Doing
okay?
I read this book, and we did it last Saturday on the radio show. Charlie Hustle, The Life and Times.
Yeah, I heard that. Rose. That was great. What a great show.
What an
awesome book. That was great stuff, man.
Have you ever had a chance to? I mean, I'm sure you know more about Pete Rose than I do, but that's bittersweet, sad.
Yeah, that's a sad story. He should. I mean, I think he should be in the Hall of Fame.
I do too.
One of the greatest of all times, and he had a sickness, gambled too much, just like probably half the people in professional sports right now. So yeah, it's a sad story, man.
Wasn't Alex Karras and Paul Hornung they?
Oh yeah, those guys are in the Hall of Fame.
Tell the story. Didn't they? Well, they did. I mean, in the book, Pete Rose only when he bet, and if he bet the Reds, he only bet on them to win.
Mm-hmm. See, I don't have a problem with that. I don't have a problem with that. If you bet on your own team, it's just,
but he had this moment, and he was in the commissioner's office.
Yeah.
And had he said yes, things would be different.
But yeah, absolutely.
But he lied.
He lied. He just had to admit it. Yeah, it's just so. I mean, that dude was. I mean, he was what baseball was all about.
Yes.
He was what America was all about. He was Charlie Hustle.
Charlie Hustle.
Yeah.
And he got that name as it was a put down. It was Mickey Mantle.
I heard you say that.
Yeah, Mickey. Yeah. Well, the guy, Mickey Mantle and those guys said they called him Charlie Hustle as a put down, and it stuck because he was Charlie Hustle.
Yeah, he's incredible.
Wow.
When I grew up as a kid, ironically or coincidentally, our neighbors were from Cincinnati, and they had just moved to Colorado, and they were the biggest Reds fans. So we became Reds fans. We had the Denver Bears, so we didn't have Major League Baseball. So,
it's the house.
We all became Reds fans, man.
That's why KHOWK How is.
That's right.
It's the Houseums.
Houseums, yep.
And I got to know the
Bob.
I got to know Bob. Yeah, he's a good guy. Really.
Was
good
he?
Guy. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Hey, he gave me I have a Bears hat.
Oh man,
a Bears hat.
Love the Bears. Oh, I gotta see that sometime. Love that.
Those guys were okay guys.
Yeah, they were.
So
well, I'll do this and then get out of your hair.
All right, sir.
All right, man. Great to hear your voice and see you again. Good morning, TGIF. 50 and sunny in Denver. Expecting a high of 75 today. The 7-10 5-day forecast coming up. Our top story, former Supreme Court Justice David Souter has died at the age of 85. He passed away Thursday at his home in New Hampshire. Souter was appointed by President George H.W. Bush in 1990. And Mike Davis, Article 3 Project, with some choice words for Justice Roberts, who's forgotten how he got there, evidently, and oftentimes he thinks he's a superhero.
I like him. I clerk for Justice Gorsuch. John Roberts is a perfectly good man, but when he tries to take off his judicial robe and climb into the political arena and throw political punches, he should expect powerful political counterpunches from the Article 3 Project and elsewhere. I would also say this to John Roberts. He thinks he's a masterful politician. Number one, that's not his job. And number two, if it were his job, he is terrible at it. He is a terrible politician. Judges are terrible politicians. They don't like to hear that because they think that they're good at everything because they have a bunch of sycophants.
And we know that. And the crowd goes wild. No, not a baseball game. The new Pope, and he is American, as Pete was talking about, for the first time in history. Cardinal Robert Prevost celebrating his first Mass as Pope Leo XIV. Today's Mass at the Sistine Chapel was attended by the cardinals who elected the Pope during a 2-day conclave at the Vatican. Louis Prevost, his oldest brother, says it was destiny.
We've kind of known he was special, and we used to tease him about being Pope when he was 6 years old.
It's a day of great excitement for Chicago, for the United States to have one of our own be elected as the Pope.
Bishop Larry Sullivan. The Pentagon is moving quickly to remove about 1,000 transgender service members from the U.S. military. On Thursday, active duty transgender troops were given 30 days to voluntarily leave or be forced out, and reservists were given 60 days. On the same subject, back to the Dumb Zone on ESPN. Her name is Kate Fagan.
Being on this show has been a privilege and a platform, and I know it's my last time on it, and I want to say something worthy of that privilege and platform, and that is this, that trans kids deserve to play sports. Think about what you remember from your time playing sports. Like 99% of it is finding that jersey for the first time, your favorite number, community, joy, those high fives. It's that moment when you have a great play with a teammate. It's the feeling of belonging, and it does not know gender. And trans kids deserve that the same as everybody else does. And Tony, this space has, on Around the Horn, it's been about diversity and inclusion and lifting up new voices, because sports is joy and sports is humanity.
Yeah, unless you end up paralyzing or killing a girl or a woman in a sport one day. It's going to happen if they allow men to compete with women in a lot of sports, and or boys against girls. Unbelievable. 47 is calling for a 30-day ceasefire in the Russian-Ukraine war. He said the talks continue between Russia and Ukraine, and that hopefully an acceptable ceasefire will be observed and both countries will be held accountable for respecting the sanctity of these direct negotiations. Nuggets take on the Thunder tonight. They try to take a 2-1 lead in the series. It is Game 3 in Lodo. 47 in Brighton, 48 in Englewood, and 50 in Denver. Pete's in for Jeff and Billy the next 2 hours. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Beautiful spring weather will be moving in for this Mother's Day weekend. Get out and enjoy some beautiful front range weather. Temperatures will be in the low to mid 70s today, mid to upper 40s tonight, mid to upper 70s Saturday. For today and Saturday, only a small chance of mainly an isolated thunderstorm over the mountains. Reaching into the low 80s Mother's Day Sunday, a better chance Sunday for some afternoon thunder, staying quite warm into Monday and Tuesday. Weather sponsored by Colorado's Best Roofing, reminding you to protect your home from the harsh Colorado weather and schedule your free no-obligation roof inspection today at roofingcolorado.com. That's roofingcolorado.com. Meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
I'm Peter Boyle sitting in for Jeff and Bill, and we're back here tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Good morning, everyone. Friday, May the 9th, 75 the high, and 78 Saturday and Sunday, 83 degrees. 303-696-1971 is the phone number. Lines are wide open. I just sat down. The topic on talk radio across the country and nightly news is the new Pope, the American Pope. How many people have ever been to the Vatican? How many guys in the audience, hands up, men and women, been to the Vatican? I've been to the Vatican twice, and because of my friendship with Archbishop Chaput, I got to have a very, really, really interesting tour of the Vatican. I'm drawn to reading religious history and the history of the Church and how the Vatican becomes the Vatican. How many people know how the Vatican State becomes the Vatican State? And there used to be the Papal States, and the Papal States were very strong. And how much importance did the Pope have? And after the Second World War, the Pope loses status. It isn't the time, but how many people know the beginnings of this and been to see Michelangelo's paintings or to see the St. Peter's Basilica, the largest church in the world, in fact, and when it was built, and the Lateran Treaty. Now, that's really a significant part of who we are. The Lateran was signed, it was Pius the 11th, and the Italian leader at the time is the one, the only, Benito Mussolini. And they made deals. The church makes deals. And Mussolini declared the Vatican City as an independent state that became, in fact, the world's smallest country. But it was because the Pope was willing to make recognition of the abilities of people like Victor Emmanuel and the existence of Mussolini, and for that the church was being held. And so the first and only, the Vatican becomes the Vatican. But it is only that through a political recognition of a dictator. They begin building the Vatican in the way first part of the 16th century, I think in 1502 or something. The cornerstone for St. Peter's is laid. And it's important. It's a pilgrimage site, and we know about Constantine's mother going into the Holy Land and taking what she wanted and bringing it back. So it wasn't until the year was, I think, was like 1930 or something that the Vatican becomes a state, and it's been really interesting to read the history of the papacy. Because of my friendship with, actually, the guy who I always thought would be the first American Pope was the former Archbishop of Denver, who went on to Philadelphia, and we were friends. I mean, we used to have good conversations. We disagreed on just about everything, but Archbishop Chaput was a really interesting guy, and he arranged for me to go under the Vatican. There's the Vatican is, as the story goes, that during the occupation by the Germans, as you know, the Germans, when Mussolini runs and he's rescued by the SS rescues him from the top of the mountain, and Scorsese rescues Mussolini, and the Germans take over Italy. And it leads into some things with Allen Dulles, John Foster Dulles' brother, into the CIA. the first untrustworthy thing that the American CIA does was probably done in Italy during the time of the surrender. Long story short, so the Nazis are occupying and rounding up Jews and doing all the things that they're doing. And there's a workman, and I was told this story. There's a workman walking across the floor, and St. Peter's is huge. The basilica is huge, and he went through the floor. His foot went through the floor, and that's when they knew. And so underneath the Vatican, they have tunneled, and they've found things under there, and I'm told that they have done so much excavation that they've actually almost weakened the structure. As you probably know, it was a dump during the time of Nero, and when they when Peter was going to be crucified, he was crucified upside down. He did not want to be, Jesus was crucified head up, and Peter said he wasn't worthy, so they crucified Peter head down. And the second pope is named Linus, which is always really great because of what happens in the Peanuts. He's that little special voice of the Peanuts. But so the successor and I don't think there's ever been more than one Linus. I think there's only been one Peter. So anyhow, so I get invited, and I was given this whole tour of what it is. And the Vatican is, there's so much conspiracy theories. The Vatican conspiracy theories never go out of style. And the allegations of the Nazi rat lines are there, and the aftermath of World War II, and whether or not, the Pius was connected into the rounding up of Jews. And there's a book called Hitler's Pope, and the 98, I think it was the Swiss Guard murders, and that was a conspiracy, in the Vatican Bank. And if you read, or not read, but seen Godfather 2, that's one thing. Godfather 3, when they hang the guy, they find the guy hanging under the Blackfriars Bridge. That happened. That was real. Remember? And the belief in the Pope was murdered. Remember all the stuff that went with that. That's recent stuff. It was clear that the Vatican Bank is in such trouble. And there was a bank in this country, the BCCI, that was called the Bank of Crooks and Criminals, and they were connected into the Vatican Bank, and it's the theme of Godfather 3. Anyhow, so I'm in a study group, and I was taken under the Vatican, and true story, and they have airlocks, and the Swiss Guard has to know who you are and let you in, and so we go in, and there was I think it was an Irish priest, and there was a couple theologians and some academicians, and so you get pretty far down under. I am the world's most claustrophobic person, so we get to this junction underneath the Vatican, and the guide says there's a tunnel to the right, and he said, back there is where we believe the first picture, the first drawing of Jesus is. And he said, we have a light back there that we can turn on. Who wants to go in? And and everybody's looking at each other, but nobody's going to do it. And I go, Boyles, you're never going to get this chance again. You got to go. And again, I can't cover my head with the covers at night. So I said, I'll go. And they had a wire that ran back there, and there was a light bulb back there. And he said, okay. And you had to kind of crotch your shoulders. And you didn't have to duck walk it, but you had to, like, maybe Groucho walk it. And he said, when you get in there, you'll come into like a hive. And when you come into the room, stand up, turn around, and look to the wall above you, and then you'll see the picture. And so it couldn't have been more than, 10 feet back through this tunnel. And the light was on, I could see ahead. But when you stood up inside and you turned to face where the artwork was, you were tombed. I mean, it was like the tunnel was now below your waist, and you felt like you were in a beehive from the inside, but it was, and there was this face. It's there. Semitic, dark black curly hair, Semitic face. And the church believes that that's the first picture. Remember, Jesus eventually becomes a white guy with long blonde hair, but we know that's not true. But there it was. And I came out of there like a shot. But it's there. The Vatican, the popes, and we know that God's an American, so ain't it about time? 303-696-1971. Good morning, everybody. 710 KUS. Lines are wide open. I'm Peter Boyles. Good to have you here. I'm filling in for Jeff and Billy. They bailed. It's a Friday morning, the 9th morning of May, 2025. 75 the high today, 78 Saturday, 83 on Sunday. I'm back here tomorrow, and we have off and on had Palestinian people with us, and they're going to come back. There has been absolutely imminent, almost like a blackout over Gaza, and now Netanyahu says he's going to move the Palestinian people south, and it strikes me Andrew Jackson and the Cherokee Indians and the Trail of Tears keep pushing these people further, because the Cherokees were fighting. The Cherokee Indians, you know, the Red Sticks War, and where Davy Crockett fought. And they fought to try and keep what was theirs, and so now they get pushed, and Netanyahu is pushing them again. So they'll come in, everybody will get mad, they'll be there, but the main part of tomorrow's show is Brad Meltzer. He is unquestionably probably the best guest we've ever had. I love him dearly, so Brad will be on the show with us as well. So that's tomorrow here on 710 KNUS. But I'm not an expert. I'm a guy that is drawn to reading about things that are significant, the Vatican City and popes and facts and history, and trying to understand the Vatican City and the popes and the facts and history. And a lot of cheerleading on talk radio. It's really been fun to listen to it. The Vatican has a very rich history. The papal conclave, once again, has put the smallest nation on earth back in the spotlight. Vatican City is the smallest country in the world, but it has a great deal of influence. If you want a better understanding of the nation of the Vatican, it starts with a very interesting history. The Vatican originated when the Basilica of St. Peter's, and I sat and got lectured on this, was constructed in the 4th century. And the Pope then decided to have a palace. The Pope wanted a palace. And so then it begins. And so by the 14th century, the 1300s, the Vatican had become the residence of the Pope, replacing the honor once held by Rome. There's museums, there's art galleries, and all the impressive parts of the Vatican Library. I saw some of the Vatican Library. It's amazing. And the popes ruled much of Italy, the Papal States, until the 19th century. Giuseppe Garibaldi, who knows the history of Giuseppe Garibaldi, but when I'm a little kid, when I'm like 16, 17, 18 years old and drinking and working, and I was a member of the Garibaldi Club. My best friend, one of my best friends growing up, Severo Miglioretti, and his father, Big Reno, and they were the members of the Garibaldi Club, and they're also members of the Sons and Daughters of Northern Italy, and this is like the East Coast stuff, and we were in the Hibernians, the ancient high order of Hibernians. My brother still has his Hibernian card, and on the back of the card it says, "You don't have to be Irish to be a member." They just wanted people to come in and drink, and but I was in the Garibaldi Club. But Garibaldi attempted to assassinate the Pope. Allegedly, the stiletto knife, the switchblade knife, comes from Garibaldi. And so the 14th century, the Vatican is the residence of the Pope. And the popes ruled much of Italy, the Papal States, especially the Medici popes and others. And at this time, the country unified, and it took away the Papal States. And at this point in history, the power of the popes was in jeopardy. And they were only allowed to rule the Vatican and some small areas around the Vatican. And for those in this position, refused to accept any more than that. So now comes 1929. This is the agreement with Mussolini. And the Lateran Treaty was signed by Italy's rulers and the popes. And the agreement gave the Vatican City its independence, making it the smallest country in the world. However, it got its own ambassadors, it could offer passports. It did all these things, that agreement, but the Vatican City, the idea was then they recognized Mussolini and what was his foreign secretary, Badoglio. And then he had a Chianti, and Chianti was his son-in-law, I think, Badoglio. And they made the deal. And it was like, okay, and making deals with the fascists. And John Paul II, who I really have a lot of respect for, he had to agree, by the way, to modify parts of that treaty. These changes meant that Roman Catholicism was no longer the official religion of Italy. Remember, that was part of the deal. It's like the United States having an official religion. So another major event, and then the attempt on John Paul's life. So all that kind of stuff, and I've read this stuff, and I'm watching and listening to people talk. But the conspiracy theories in the Vatican really never go away, and they're really interesting to go. But why do you think the College of Cardinals chose a Chicago native, an American, to be Pope after Francis? Serious question, 303-696-1971. Do you think it was because of his spirituality, or do you think there's something else? I guarantee this is my side of there's something going on. There's something going on. I think it plays out in Trump. I think it plays out in all kinds of different things. Look, these guys, they're not fools by any stretch of the imagination. It's a boys' club. When you think about it, it's a boys' club. Everybody's there, the Cardinals are a boys' club. Nobody's married. They're all single. They've been elevated, and they vote. Why did they vote for the American? I am in spite of the text messaging, I'm certainly not a specialist in Catholic history and ritual. Not even a chance. But this is an important moment. And this new pope brings, well, you can hear the excitement on talk radio, and to me it's kind of like, come on, but the College of Cardinals. And this was a surprise. But there's something that's more to this than he lived in Peru. I mean, come on, that's this. Well, he lived in Peru. And so tell me this, riddle me this. Why did they choose an American? There's never been an Irishman. There's never been a black guy. We get on a list of things there's never been. But out of nowhere, I mean, John Paul was Polish and the first non-Italian pope since probably, I don't know, the 15th century. And then Benedict was born in Germany, and Francis is born in South America, and to parents who were Italian-born immigrants in Argentina. So, this is the not how happy you can be. This is the serious question of all of this. Why? Why did they choose an American? Because they and by the way, the reason I believe in their thinking, the reason why there's never been a black pope is because it's a European religion. I mean, clearly it's a European religion. And so wide open lines and a really brilliant question, Peter, 303-696-1971. Do you think this is happenstance or because he was a really good missionary in Peru or because there's something else? And there is. 303-696-1971. Here we go again. 710 KNUS. I'm Peter Boyles. Good morning on a Friday, the 9th morning of May, 2025. 75 will be the high. 78 Saturday, 83 Sunday. Back here tomorrow at 9. I'm flat-footed because we're just talking to Adam and talking to the boss. What is the strategic move? The church is only operating in that capacity. Do not kid yourself. They pick an American for the first time. Why? What is the strategic move to pick an American? And he's young in terms of, normal papal picks. He's 69 years old. He's going to be there a while. Let me read you the things come flying in the door. Good morning, Pete. This is, I won't say, Janet from Littleton. They chose Pope Leo because he's a good choice and perhaps to get the Vatican out of debt. And you're right, there is probably a connection to the Trump people somehow to achieve that goal. Thank you for another great show. I really appreciate your knowledge. Well, that's kind. Thank you. American Pope must be for a reason. Well, that's just real legit. Maybe the damage that Donald J. Trump could cause would result in mass migration. That would degrade the Catholic system. Is it now? That's a very good one. Peter, black Catholic cardinal man, live in Europe. They do. I met him. Arenzi is his name. The papal election was rigged. Millions of illegal cardinals voted. That's very, very good. Donald Trump was the real winner. Stop the holy steal. This one says, people are willing to talk about it, but just not call it. The Vatican is cash-strapped, and America is where the money is, all right? God is American. Jesus Christ spoke English, and that's why it's good enough for the children of Texas. That's a real good story. That's Ma Ferguson, I think was her name, Ma and Pa, and she was she becomes the governor, but she was the wife of the governor. And even then, there was this disagreement about language taught in public schools in Texas. And Ma said, if English is good enough for Jesus Christ, it's good enough for the school children of Texas. And, there's a really great book on how Jesus became a white guy, and it's things like that. But this is a good question. Why? And this guy really was a sleeper. He wasn't in the front runners, and pop, there he is. And it isn't because he went to Peru and was a missionary. That's nonsensical. That's not how the College of Cardinals works. They make choices that are predicated, and much like the back rooms in conventions in the 1930s presidentials in the so-called smoke-filled rooms. If you read the history, and I've been drawn to reading the history, but if you read the history of the church and the choosing, do you ever read The Shoes of the Fisherman? Did you ever read that book? It was like, and it really comes true with John Paul II, but the world's starving to death, and the Chinese are starving. And there's a pope who had been in, there was a priest, who was so incarcerated by the communists and was released. And they needed a pope, and they voted for him, and he gave away the wealth of the church. The church is incredibly wealthy. You've seen it. I've seen it. If you go into Central America and to Latin America, you see, the beggars next to the gold. And it's always like, wait a minute. And you see these bejeweled churches with people begging outside. And this guy takes in, this is a fiction book entitled The Shoes of the Fisherman, because Peter's a fisherman. And these are Peter's shoes. And he gives away the wealth of the church to feed the Chinese, who in fact are not Christian. And it's a really, 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 really remarkable book. And I read it years ago. So now here we are in the meetings. All the cardinals get together. And again, it's a boys' club. It's all single guys. And, you know, people talk about bringing in priests that will be women. Taking all the different parts of the church. And I heard somebody on the radio yesterday talking about they admire the stalwartness of the church holding with tradition. The one thing you can be sure of, there's a philosophy called pragmatism. And the essence of pragmatism is change. The only thing you can be sure of in life is change. Nothing else. It doesn't mean you can predict the change or make the change or say the change, but you can only be sure of change. And so the pragmatic part of the church, I don't know, does it have to change? Back to the wall again. Good morning, Peter. Europe is being overrun by Muslims and illegals. Let me read this straight. Good morning, Peter. Europe is being overrun by Muslims and illegals. The U.S. can control that. Well, you know, we overran the Middle East. and now they're following the money back upstream. Don't kid yourself. I mean, the Europeans and the Americans fled into the Middle East and did exactly what is being done now in reverse, and everybody's upset. The Muslims are coming. Well, went there first. Do you think Trump is a threat to the world order? The American was chosen to counter Trump. All right, we come back. Try this again. Maybe make some phones light up. 710 KNUS 303-696-1971. morning, everybody. Peter Boyle's in for Jeff and Bill. And back here tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. We are Radio Free Denver, good old 710 KNUS, and the weather's beautiful. 75 the high today, 78 Saturday, and 83 on Sunday. I'm back here tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Stefan's going to do the show early, and I think we got a good one. The Palestinians have been with us 3 times before on our Saturday show, and they'll tell you they just get blacked out, turned away by every other media outlet in the city of Denver, and they're coming back. It's what we're watching now in Gaza. And there seems to be almost like a media blackout over Gaza, and they return. And Brad Meltzer's on, who is, I think, over time, perhaps the greatest guest of all time. He's brilliant, so he'll be with us. So that's tomorrow, and we're talking about. And I've been listening all week, off and on, to talk radio. The new pope, the new pope. What I mean, I'm always amazed that people don't look at this as it should be looked at. The College of Cardinals, which has few representatives from other countries until recently, is more international. But some 80% of cardinal electors were named by Francis, and they were his guys set up in the box, and they chose an American. Why? They didn't choose this guy. Don't kid yourself. They are far more intricate. There is far more technology. There is far more sophistication to that than, he was a really great missionary in Peru. If you got that, I got a bridge. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we go to the man cave, the Olson Report. You there? Where are you?
Blake Olson.
Blake Olson, news and comment.
Here he is.
Yeah,
There he is.
Like that intro? TGIF.
I'm telling
Peter.
you, man. Who's better than you? Do you tell people where you actually are broadcasting from?
I'm at my home in northern Colorado.
A seemingly abandoned
in
warehouse.
the basement.
Yes.
That's right. In the bunker, as you mentioned a few months ago.
Is that a man cave thing that you got?
Yes, it is. This is where my boys and I we watch football.
Oh yeah, sure.
And basketball,
sure.
And that stuff. And then my wife stays away from us.
When John Vandermeer, I'd love to see this guy's house. When John literally had I called it a yard sale. They sold everything involved in that drag strip. Everything.
Is that
and
right?
And if you know about drag racing, there's something called the trees. And that's the lights that beep, 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 beep come down.
Oh, yeah.
And then the cars go. Some guy I think the guy came from Texas and bought them.
Oh, that is so cool. I love those lights.
But he put them in his man cave.
Did he?
And
that's great.
And I walked the track with Mr. Vandermeer on the very next to the last day we walked the track. And I said, can you imagine this guy's house?
Those things are pretty big.
Oh, they're huge. They're huge.
They're like, what are they, 10 feet tall?
Oh, minimum.
15?
Minimum.
Really?
Minimum.
Wow.
And
his mansion must be huge then.
Oh, but he came into town and bought it. Imagine
that is so cool.
Back in the old days, the guys would do the flags, or have some woman do the flags,
Right.
Now it's beep, 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 and then you go.
Oh,
and,
that's cool.
Man. But the guy bought them.
Oh,
I thought,
man.
Now that guy's got
Wonder how much he paid for them.
I don't know.
That's pretty cool,
More
man.
than you and I got.
Next time you see me, I'll have some lights back here for you.
They got to blink down. Ding, ding, ding,
that's
ding,
right.
ding, ding.
Exactly. I love it.
Staging.
I love it. Exactly.
Get the news. All right, brother.
All right. 54 and sunny, as Pete mentioned, in Denver, expecting a high of 75 today. The 710 5-day forecast coming up. Our top story: suspects are still on the loose this morning in Aurora, and police are looking for them after they stole a truck, which led to a chase chase and a crash. One officer is in the hospital with minor injuries from the crash. It happened just before 6 this morning when officers located a stolen F-150 Raptor. They tried to stop the driver, but he continued at high speeds and collided with another car at Buckley and Dartmouth. The woman driving the vehicle of that in that crash was not injured, thankfully. Former Supreme Court Justice David Souter has died at the age of 85. He passed away Thursday at his home in New Hampshire. Souter was appointed by President H.W. Bush in 1990. Joe Biden is still alive, allegedly, and was on The View Thursday. They asked a question about his cognitive decline, and eventually he forgot what he was going to say. But then, don't we all? Scott Jennings on CNN says the new book on Biden and the Dems is damning.
These appearances, coupled with what I understand is going to be the equivalent of a nuclear bomb dropped on the Democratic Party when Jake Tapper and Alex Thompson's book come out next week, I don't know that the Democrats have fully internalized what's about to happen to them. Between what he looks like today and what they're about to report, get ready.
I am not sure that Joe.
You just said that
what
he
did
told.
not say? You said that he told Kamala Harris that she could not have any distance
False.
from him.
It's been reported. He told.
It doesn't
her
matter what he
point blank.
was.
He told her point blank, no daylight, kid. No daylight.
Because reporting can never be wrong.
Are you attacking the journalism around it?
You think reporting can never be wrong?
If you want to be
you come in, you come on here, and you attack reporting every night.
I do not.
We actually asked him the question
There's critical
directly.
reporting about this guy, and he told her point blank,
we asked
no
him,
daylight.
We asked him directly today.
All right.
Did you tell her that?
You think he's ever told a lie?
I don't think he tells many lies.
Cognitive decline, I can tell you that much.
I don't think he tells many lies. I don't think.
That was pretty funny. All right, that was angry Anna Navarro. The new pope is an American for the first time in history. Cardinal Robert Prevost is celebrating his first Mass as Pope Leo the 14th. Today's Mass at the Sistine Chapel was attended by the cardinals who elected him, and Louis Prevost, his oldest brother, says they all knew this was going to happen.
We've kind of known he was special, and we used to tease him about being Pope when he was 6 years old.
It's a day of great excitement for Chicago, for the United States to have one of our own be elected as the Pope.
And that's Bishop Larry Sullivan. Fox News host Judge Jeanine Pirro is being named interim U.S. Attorney for Washington, D.C. by the president. DJT made the announcement after replacing Ed Martin as his nominee earlier in the day. Pirro has been a longtime ally of Trump, dating back to her time as a prominent prosecutor in New York. Nuggets try to take a 2-1 lead tonight against the Thunder in Game 3 in Lodo. 52 in Westminster, 50 in Castle Rock, 54 in Denver. Pete is in for Jeff and Billy. And he's getting that thing ready probably in about an hour. Did you drive it in today?
I will tomorrow. I just had a lot to do this morning, and so I didn't ride. But I will. I guarantee. Remember, guys said that. I guarantee.
Yes.
Speaking of guaranteers, Hildebrandt's here. He'll guarantee it.
Oh man!
I turn his microphone on. There, put his mic
him on the bike.
There he is. No,
there
I don't know,
Jeff. How you doing?
Do you ever ride motorcycles?
I've fallen off of some.
Okay.
Did you ever ride?
Hey, Peter, I'm going to get out of here, and you can take over. I'm sorry. We're coming up on a break here.
No, you
Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Beautiful spring weather will be moving in for this Mother's Day weekend. Get out and enjoy some beautiful front range weather. Temperatures will be in the low to mid 70s today, mid to upper 40s tonight, mid to upper 70s Saturday. For today and Saturday, only a small chance of mainly an isolated thunderstorm over the mountains. Reaching into the low 80s Mother's Day Sunday. A better chance Sunday for some afternoon thunder, staying quite warm into Monday and Tuesday. Weather sponsored by Colorado's Best Roofing, reminding you to protect your home from the harsh Colorado weather and schedule your free no-obligation roof inspection today at roofingcolorado.com. That's roofingcolorado.com. Meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
There you go. He was blowing his nose. Ladies and gentlemen, you got a microphone on. It is a Friday morning, the 9th morning of May, 2025, and they're all moving in, and they changed the camera angles around when you get here.
Yeah. Yeah, they do. Yeah, wide shot.
The Jeff Hildebrand Show is about to begin. Ladies and gentlemen, here's Jeffy. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Doing well.
I get to see you every once in a while in the hall.
Yeah.
We'll say, hey, how you doing? How you doing?
I speed up when I see you. I don't want those long conversations. It's like being around Bill, only not quite as aggressive.
And you and I go back 1,000 years working in this business together, and I have so much respect and love. And so I know because I hear the Friday segment of your poetry, and it's good stuff. We got phones lit up now. I don't know. Give me, Mike, and want to take a call together?
Oh, boy, howdy!
What do you know?
You mean I really get to talk to people?
Well,
cool.
Hey, this is Mike in Wheat Ridge. Now this is the Jeff and Peter show. Mike, go ahead.
Hey,
Mike?
Peter.
Yeah.
Got a book suggestion, maybe for a Saturday. I'm reading a book called Deadly Heist, and again, it's about the United Bank murders. And as a retired Denver cop, brought back a lot of memories, and it's right up your alley. Of course, the James King thing, and
sure,
brought back all of my old colleagues, and my classmate was the first cop on the scene. And
wow,
boy, it's a good read.
Do you?
It's
Are you one of the people that believes that he did it?
100%.
Yeah, you and I both.
100%. Everything is there. Department issued ammunition.
Yep.
Everything there. He wore a mustache his whole career. He shaved it off.
Yeah.
Just everything about King was there. Never visited his father-in-law's grave. Went there.
No.
They dredged the lake.
Do you know this story, Jeff? Let me ask Jeff. Jeff, do you know the story of the United? What was it? Was it Mother's Day or Father's Day?
A Father's Day.
It was Father's Day.
Yeah.
Do you remember the story?
No.
All right. Well, tell the story, caller. Tell the story. He gets into the. They had to know him to get him in the bank.
Well, yeah, it's a clearing center for United Bank. That Norwest bought him out of Minnesota, and it's one of the most gruesome murders in Denver history. Basically, it's 4 security guards murdered, and this robbery takes place. It's a joint effort because of the FBI does anything bank related, and DPD and the FBI, 2 old school cops, Robert Pence, longtime FBI guy who ironically is playing golf with Harry Zavaris, 2 old school Denver cops, FBI guys. They're playing golf. They get this call on Father's Day Sunday morning. Their pagers go off, and it's this murder. And this guy goes methodically through this catacomb down into the vaults of this place and murders these 4 guards and commits this robbery. And you have to know this place. You couldn't have gotten to this place without prior knowledge. And
they had to get him in.
They had to get him in, and somebody had to be let in, and basically the ruse was that this vice president came on a Sunday to be let in.
Yep.
Guard goes up to let him in, gets taken back down there. was murdered.
Killed him in the hallway.
And then murders.
Yeah.
Killed him in the hallway of a very lesser known part of the building that only a guard would know. And
it's really just to cut to the chase is they had the knowing to let him in, and I had lunch with Zavaris the other day, and all those guys, all the old timers were there, and Larry was there, and just had the best lunch. But I've talked to so many old time cops about that, and they said that they had to know him to let him in. They were just counting money on Sunday, right?
Yeah.
And
count money on Sunday. And this book, Peter, is just.
Tell me the name of the book. What's the name of the book?
Deadly Heist.
I'll find it.
Just came out, and it's a great read. It just reads so fast.
Who wrote it? Do you know?
And I don't have it.
I'll find
right
it.
Off
I'll find it. I'll find it. It's not a problem. But
and it's just if you could get the author on, it just it for you, it's just gonna bring back everything. Norm Early and all the guys you worked with, and John Priest.
Oh yeah. Well, I know. I
it's just.
And the belief was there was one belief, and I have to be cautious in saying this, that they killed the first guy in the hallway, and one of the investigators said they thought he was in on it, so he had to be killed first.
That was the belief, that was the belief.
Stephen Epstein. Can we? Well, I'm looking at Adam through the window, and Adam says, "Just put his thumb in the air," so that means we'll get it.
Does this sound to anybody like a TV movie on Lifetime or something?
Did they ever make a movie out of it?
It may not be the exact thing, but the inside job. Killing everybody, escaping through tunnels.
Nobody gets out.
It's like
it would be it would be so great, Jeff, because it's a cop. It's one of these lesser known cops. He writes a book, a novel, where he basically details this whole plan. Lives in a nondescript house in Old Golden. They go and dredge the lake at Mount Olivet Cemetery because they thought he ditched the murder weapon.
That's right.
Cops, as Peter will tell you, cops are very possessive. And amazingly, he gets rid of his service revolver.
Never happens.
Allegedly because of a cracked cylinder.
Yeah, it never happens.
And shaves his mustache off that he wore. And defended by a well-known guy in Denver, Walter Garash.
Walter Garash. That there's so many Walter Garash stories, and
he gives him the alibi that says that he's downtown playing chess with him at the chess club. It's just to me, it's a fascinating story, and
I'll tell you what. I won't kill it. We'll get the book, and we'll do it on the show. No, for real.
I appreciate it so much.
Oh, listen, he's working on it already. Adam's on the job.
Yeah.
Thanks, Michael. It's good to hear your voice.
Thank you, Keith.
Thank you, sir. All right, there you are. Did you ever do crime stories? Follow crime stories?
Oh well, just in terms of news reporting, but never in depth like you do. I've never really beaten a dead horse like some people, but
can't give that one up. There's been some good ones, man. But yes, the answer is yes.
Oh yeah,
we were talking about rodeoing too, coming in. When did you start going to rodeos?
Oh golly, it's been. My kids were real little, so I don't know, 35, 40 years ago.
Which one did you go to first?
Oh, it was in Cincinnati.
Really?
When I worked in Cincinnati, yeah. Went to a rodeo.
They brought one to town.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Of course. They have horses there.
I'm sure they do.
There's old cows.
Bucking bulls.
Yeah.
There you
are. A
are.
lot of bull in Cincinnati. Yeah.
One or two. So you did you cover rodeos? Did you go out and have to cover them?
I never really, no, not professionally. When I worked for the Westerns Channel, I did some stuff with rodeos when they came through town and interviewed some of the rodeo clowns and the cowboys.
Do you remember who you?
I don't remember now who I interviewed here. I remember out in Las Vegas, I was out there for there's several things going on. Yeah, there was PBR going on, and Ty Murray.
Oh man,
was there, and we talked and chatted, and I just the other day found a picture of me with Ty Murray.
He could stick,
and his singer girlfriend.
That's right.
Back in the day.
What was her name? He married her, didn't he?
No.
They didn't get married?
No.
God, she was beautiful.
Yeah.
There was always
That's why I have the picture buried, because I don't want to bring it out.
It didn't work out. Hey, Ty.
Yeah.
I told you that story in Cheyenne where Larry Mahan had quit rodeoing, but he had a band.
Oh.
And they would do Wide World of Sports and Kurt Gowdy.
Oh, no kidding. Yeah.
And because I went to rodeo school, went to bull riding school, and so David Allen and Bob Edson got me a job spotting bulls for Wide World of Sports in Cheyenne, Wyoming.
No kidding.
For real. And so that night, Larry's band's playing. And so this woman, lucky they gave me one like a front table, a place called the Hitchin' Post, if you remember the Hitch.
Yes.
Hitch was great. God, there were so many great stories in the Hitch. And so we're sitting there, and it's like it was like a who's who.
Yeah.
And I just, hunkered down, and here comes this woman in the door, beautiful, beautiful woman, wearing a Greenpeace jacket in Cheyenne, and sits down at the front of the table, and alcohol was flowing, and Larry Mahan and Kurt Gowdy are on the stage, and Kurt Gowdy grew up there.
Yeah.
And he was talking about all those legendary bucking horses, midnight, and 15 minutes. What was it? 15 minutes to midnight, and sunfish and legendary bucking horses from his youth. And so Larry said, and they're done talking, and Gowdy was great. I mean, Gowdy was a good guy.
Yeah.
And and I knew Larry well, and so they get done, and Larry said, we have a very special guest here tonight, and we'll see if we can get her up to sing a song. He said, Miss Tanya Tucker.
Oh.
And she had the Greenpeace jacket on.
Yeah.
She gets up, and some guy does what cowboys do in bars.
Oh, yeah.
And she was...
So I've heard.
Once in a while. And she was with a guy named Bobby Brown, who they called Hooter. And she did a song called While You're Out There Riding Rainbows. And it was about Bobby Brown. It was a bucking horse they were West Texas bucking horse riders.
Yeah.
They were tough. And so Bobby took offense to that. and he lets this guy have it. And the whole place blows up. And so Larry and Kurt Gowdy are up on the stage talking about, in the old days in Cheyenne, and somebody said, hey, Kurt, turn those fill-in-the-blank cameras around. Show them Cheyenne. And there was about 10 guys going at it. 3:03. So you have some poetry for us this morning?
I met Tanya Tucker.
Oh, boy.
When she was still Tanya Tucker, when she was like 12.
Oh, wow.
And just getting into the business. She came to the radio station doing the tours, radio stations. And so I met her, and we were in Wichita at a little radio station. And all I remember was that here's this kid and she sings a song, and you know.
Well, jump ahead years
right
later.
Right before I met Colonel Sanders. I mean, he was doing a radio tour too.
You met them guy. Right, like 1,000 years after that incident in Cheyenne, Tanya Tucker was playing Sturgis.
Yeah.
And they have a celebrity ride. And I got invited to ride in this group with Tanya Tucker. She rode a Road King. And so I went up to, and I said, you know, Miss Tucker. And she looked at me, and she had been through all that Glenn Campbell stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And I said, I know you don't remember me, but I said, I was in Cheyenne in a hitch. And she looked at me, and she said, that is the damnedest bar fight. I mean, she was like all about it, man. She didn't bother her a bit.
Yeah.
But she rode her own she rode her own motorcycle. Tanya Tucker. We're back after this, the Jeff Hillary Show after this on 710 KNUS. We got a Friday going, and as long as I got Hildebrand, it's going to go well. It's Friday, May 9th, 2025, 710 KNUS. Kelly Michaels got the con, and Jeffrey and I are here, and it's a beautiful day. You told me something that I never knew, and I know a lot of the stuff that you did. You worked with Jack Palance.
Well, I did. I had the good fortune to work with Jack Palance a little bit out in Arizona, and was totally surprised. I was at what's called a Festival of the West outside of Phoenix, and he was there appearing as a guest star. And so I did a little interview with him, found out a little bit about him, and as a matter of fact, I wrote this poem after meeting him, and it's called You Don't Know Jack. I knew Jack Palance. I had for years, mostly mad, but with passion. A snickering shooter in Shane, a double-crossed heavyweight, an imposing icon for city slickers, always tall, raspy drawl, impressions all from celluloid. An American Comedy Award? Not the Jack I knew. Action, adventure, monsters and mayhem, killer, thriller, war, and westerns. That's the Jack I knew. Who would have thought? Multi-dimensional, multicolored, not merely grayscale. Who would have thought? A painter, a poet. His book, The Forest of Love, expressing his emotions, not verbalizing another's words. Jack? I thought I knew Jack, but for years I only saw the shell.
Wow. So you're telling me that, and Shane, Shane's like one of you and I were talking about, it's one of our favorite movies, and they bring him in, he's the gunman.
He's the gunman.
And in the end, Shane kills him in the shootout in that whatever that place is. It's the store, it's the bar.
Yeah.
And he, it's
a coffee shop.
It's
Starbucks.
Yes, Starbucks.
You know what it was, yeah.
The Starbucks of the time.
Yeah.
But what was interesting?
It was a character he played. All these were characters he played, but off screen
he was not.
He was not. He was still big. He was still.
Was he a big guy?
He was compared to me. Yes, he was very big. And I have a picture with him. I'm standing. He's sitting. We're still about the same height. No, not really. But yeah, my impression was that he was really big.
We were talking about using apple boxes.
Oh yeah, that's what they used with Alan Ladd. He was so short in Shane, in all his movies, but whenever they had a tall adversary, they would put him on.
I forget who the woman was that was the reason he leaves.
I don't remember either.
What?
But he would be on these things that the crew would call an apple box, which is what they carried equipment in.
Yep.
They'd turn it over, he'd step on it, and it'd raise him up about 8 or 10 inches.
Or they would dig a ditch for her to walk in.
Yeah.
When I worked in pro wrestling, they had the box.
Yeah.
The wrestler would stand on the box, and we would do the interview because they were really fit, and they were really stout, and they were muscular, but maybe they were 5'11".
Yeah.
So they would, not everybody, but a lot of those guys would use the box, and I'd be 6 inches. I'd be 6 inches lower.
Sure, yeah.
And then they would step up on the box.
I can picture it. As a matter of fact, during basketball season, I see it on TV every game where the woman they have courtside is like 4'11".
Yes.
And she's interviewing some guy that's 6'9".
Got a stick mic. they have a stick mic, and I had a stick mic.
She's talking to his navel.
Yeah.
With a mic.
Well, we had, and I think we called them. I know we called them stick mics.
Sure. Yeah.
And I had one, and we would you always did this thing, come on in, whatever the wrestler, come on in,
Yeah.
Crusher. Well, the Crusher wasn't a big guy.
Right.
He was a big guy, but he wasn't a big guy. And so he would step up on the box.
Yeah.
And then we would shoot we're just having a conversation here. We would shoot because then there was no cable, there was no internet, there was no, you didn't know the outcome, and it was the same outcome every night. But we would shoot here in Denver on Channel 2, the old bunker
Right.
was where we would shoot a lot of those promos, and we would start with the and it would be first. It would be Casper, Wyoming,
Mm-hmm.
and the Crusher's out tag would be the streets are going to run red with blood Wednesday night in Casper, and then we would do Cheyenne.
Yeah.
And the out card would be he would grab the mic out of my hand, and he would talk like that. And I can't do it because of my throat, but he said, and the streets are going to run red with blood Thursday night in
Cheyenne.
In Cheyenne. Then we would do Denver. The streets are going to run red with blood, Friday night, Denver. And then we would do the Springs and, but they had the box.
Yeah.
And some guys needed the box and some guys didn't need the box, didn't want the box, but if they wanted it, it was there. But we would shoot 5 cities, and no one knew outcomes.
Yeah.
And I mean, they knew the outcome, but they would, and it would always end up with the outcome, the tag,
Right. Yeah.
And I'd go, be there, or don't miss it. It's like, I learned more from those guys than I learned probably I learned from Bob Lee and Uncle Mike and those guys. But boy, I learned a lot from those guys.
You didn't learn enough to stay away from bull riding school, though, did you?
I went to bull riding school.
Oh boy,
it was. I'm doing the morning show. How much time we got? I'm doing the morning show. Sorry, we got 2 minutes, so we can cut it in half. But I'm doing the morning show on KLEK with Bob Lee. It was a country show playing country music. And we have a hit show. I mean, there's no question. We went from like 23rd in the market to like 3rd in the market and like a cup of coffee. And so the National Finals Rodeo was here. But then Denver had a rodeo team. And Denver's team was called the Stars.
Mm-hmm.
And they were going to compete rodeo-wise against, Salt Lake and different cities. So John Keyworth, former fullback of the Denver Broncos, my partner Bob's off, and John's filling in, and he's sitting with me. And we did a thing on what would be your favorite job that you could have, or your fantasy job. And guys are calling up, and they were saying, I'd like to be a running back in the NFL. I knew better than that. And guys want to be jet pilots and and just good stuff. So John said to me, he said, "What would you like to do?" Well, I'd never been to a rodeo in my life. It's a true story. And I said, I'd like to ride in a rodeo. End of story. So the receptionist, her name was Donna. Donna came in after the next break and said, there's a guy on line 1. His name's David Allen, and he's the PR guy for the national, and that's when the PRCA was here in Denver.
Right, yeah.
Next to Bronco Stadium. And he'll come on the air and talk to you. So, Schmodo, I bring David on, line 1. Who are you? I'm David Allen, and we're close, very close friends today. And he said, I can arrange for you to be in a rodeo. And I said, really? And I'm thinking, well, what would we do? What are the events? And he said, well, there's, steer tripping, and there's, there's saddle bronc riding, and then there's barebacks, and then there's, he went down the list of things. And they said, bull riding. I said, bull riding? He said, yeah. I said, I'd like to be a bull rider.
Yeah.
Let's break and come back. We'll take a turnaround, and we'll come right back after this on 710 KNUS. Jeff and Peter coming up, 710 KNUS, running out of time on a Friday, 9 May, 75, tomorrow 78, and 83 on Sunday. And we're telling stories about when I went to bull ride school. Long story short, I had never been to bull riding. I'd never seen bull riding.
Yeah.
And so I went to see one of the performances of the Denver Stars. The bull was Panda Bear, and Panda had been Bull of the Year like about Harry Vold owned Panda Bear. That's about 9-10 years ago. But Panda and the cowboy was Dougie Shipe, and Dougie and I still come across. So they take me down behind the chutes. I have no idea, and they run Panda in, and then they put the buck rein on Panda, and then they and there's a guy called a hooker that reaches in and pulls up the buck rein. Sure. But they put the buck strap on the back part of Panda.
Right.
And then Dougie climbs on, and he, upside down, wraps his hand down on Panda's back. And I'm watching, and I'm thinking, I'm going to do this. And all of a sudden, because you don't talk, because the bulls will hear you.
Yeah.
But he nods his head. And they're looking for an 8 when they pull that gate. And they hot shot, and that bull put his nose in the dirt and put boogers back, splashing us, and and Dougie's on, and I'm thinking, what have I just done? But I ended up going to drone school, and David took me, and when I got home, I couldn't get out of the car.
Oh.
I was so beat up. But went to bull riding school, so then we rode a couple bulls that summer, and yeah, it was like,
you're my hero.
My hero. You got something. You got something for us. I wanted to get you to go to work.
All right. This is the story of Billy Joe Thompson. Now, in high school, he trained up a calf to do things to impress the 4-H'ers and give all his buddies a laugh. That steer would fetch sticks when Bill throwed them, bring 'em back to young Bill's outstretched hand. He could jump over hay bales and barrels, and he'd even lay down on command. Billy Joe made himself quite a living with that longhorn he named Jumpin' Jake. They'd hit county fairs by the dozens till one day Bill made a mistake. As Billy and Jake made their entrance, what he saw made his face turn pale. A lady with barely a stitch on stood right by the grandstand rail. Billy Joe just forgot what he's there for. He found himself frozen in place, just watching that lovely young cowgirl. He even looked in her face. Right then, Jumpin' Jake took off running just like the way he'd been taught, except Bill wasn't paying attention because his mind only had one thought. Well, she threw him a kiss and a flower, and he bent down to pick up the mum. But old Jake, he just kept on a-running, and it looked like young Bill's time had come. Jake's horn hooked right through Bill's suspenders, so it was a terrible sight. Old ladies turned red and near fainted, while young'uns just squealed with delight. You see, Bill was a tad bit eccentric. He long since had cut off his hair. He wore jeans with no belt, just suspenders, and preferred them with no underwear. Oh, the townsfolk still laugh at what happened to young Bill on that hot afternoon, and they all claim they were a witness when the cow jumped over the moon.
Ooh. I was trying to figure when because listen. I always try and figure out where you're headed.
Home.
No, well, I think your wife came in with you today, did she not?
Yes,
yeah,
she did.
Yes, she did.
We put her in an area where she can't hear me. So then I can explain to her later what I actually did.
When I listen to you on Fridays, and I'm always trying to say, okay, how's he going to land the plane?
Yeah.
And that's what it's called. How's he going to land the plane? Seriously. I mean, great poems or epics or sagas have to have a place to land. You can't just abruptly end it.
Mine generally land in hot water.
Well, no, but that, like, I was thinking, okay, how's he going to land this? How is he going? And you did, and it was great.
Thanks.
Baxter Black was such a dear friend, and he had that ability to.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You didn't know where he was going, and then he got to where he was going to be, and then it was funny.
Yeah.
My Baxter story going to Cheyenne, I had gained my sobriety, which was a big break to go to Cheyenne, and I had met the former missus, and we took the radio show up there. It was doing great.
Right.
So I had a suite in the hitch. So I called Bax, and he's married. His wife was wonderful, named Cindy Lou. And I say, Bax, I said, I just met this young woman, and everything's great. We're going to go to Cheyenne. Would you and Cindy like to go? I said, I got a room. He said, how long are we going to be gone? And I said, 3 days. And he go, why we need a room? That's a Baxter story.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Why we need a room.
One of the great things was when he and Waddy were on Johnny Carson
Waddy
back
Mitchell.
in the day.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
I knew Waddy quite well. We did a lot of stuff together.
He bought Johnny Carson's Cadillac limousine.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, Bax did.
Yeah.
And he used to have a thing called Goat Day. After the day after Thanksgiving was Goat Day. The people that showed up for that, I mean, it was, I dearly loved him.
Yeah.
And his father-in-law taught at the University of San Antonio, but he wrote The Life and Times of Bob Wills.
Oh, yeah.
And the book is entitled The Whorehouse Bells Were Ringing. The Life and Times of Bob Wills.
Oh, man.
He had Bob Wills stories that
Yeah.
would roll you. I love working with you. I really do. You are one of a kind. And you'll be back here with really people, good people next week.
Well, no, I'm taking the week off. Since you're not going to be here, I'm taking it
That's
off.
bailing out. All right, we got 30 seconds. I'm back here tomorrow morning. Stefan's got the morning show. I got 9 o'clock, got the Palestinians, and got Brad Meltzer. Thank you, Kelly Michaels, for letting me do this. Everybody, the one and only Jeff Hildebrand, I will see you tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock.